Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is demanding to bring her homemade cooking to Thanksgiving and OP is not happy about it. Am I the jerk for telling my sister she can't bring her homemade food to Thanksgiving because her cooking is ruining the meal? Every year, our family does a big Thanksgiving dinner, and we all typically bring a dish or two. My sister, who's a lovely person in every other way, insists on cooking something homemade every time. The issue? She's not a great cook. And I don't just mean not great. I mean, she has somehow managed to turn classic dishes into borderline inedible creations. For context, last Thanksgiving, she showed up with her special recipe, stuffing, that was over-seasoned with random spices like cinnamon and cardamom. It was dry, and the flavors were confusing and totally off for stuffing. Only one person took a small bite, and the rest went untouched. Another year, she brought a green bean casserole, and it had some strange chewy texture. She later admitted she used coconut milk and almond flour to experiment. Nobody wanted seconds of that either. This year, I'm hosting Thanksgiving. Since I'm responsible for putting it all together, I wanted to keep the menu consistent so that people could actually enjoy a cohesive meal. I thought I could avoid drama by asking her to bring non-food items instead, like wine, soda, or even some flowers. I explained to her, very kindly, I thought, that I just wanted to make things easy and streamlined, and I'd handle the main dishes. But she didn't take it well. She got offended and told me I was being controlling and shutting her out of the family gathering. She then accused me of making her feel inadequate and said that Thanksgiving is about everyone contributing, not me deciding what's acceptable. I told her that everyone appreciates her effort, but that she could contribute in other ways and still be part of it. She doubled down and said she's bringing her famous green bean casserole whether I like it or not. Now, my mom and a couple of other family members have chimed in, saying I should just let her bring whatever she wants because it's Thanksgiving and it's the thought that counts. They're acting like I'm committing some huge offense by wanting the food to be enjoyable for everyone and not have random experimental dishes that no one will eat. But I feel like I'm just trying to keep the meal enjoyable and frankly edible. I don't think it's wrong to want guests to actually enjoy the food, especially since I'm putting in a lot of effort to host. Am I really being unreasonable here? Am I the jerk? Update. After our last conversation, my sister was being pretty cagey about what she planned to make, so I reached out to my mom, hoping she could help smooth things over. Instead, she got defensive, saying I'm overthinking and that it's just one dish. I told her I wasn't sure it was just one dish anymore, especially after hearing about my sister's grocery haul, including canned oysters and edible glitter. Then my mom let slip that my sister has been hard at work on some creative menu she's planning as her Thanksgiving surprise. Apparently, she's been telling the family group chat, which I wasn't included in by the way, that I'm being controlling and that she wants to expand everyone's palate with something truly unique. To top it off, my cousin sent me a screenshot from the group chat where my sister said she's bringing not one, but 3 dishes to Thanksgiving now. She's calling them her Thanksgiving trio experience, complete with their own place settings and little menu cards she's designing. I'm officially panicking because I have no idea what she's planning to serve. And from what I've heard, it's not remotely traditional. At this point, half the family thinks I'm overreacting, while the other half is texting me with things like, is she really bringing glittered sweet potatoes? I feel stuck. If I try to control it anymore, I'm the bad guy. But if I don't, Thanksgiving might turn into a tasting event for my sister's horrible cooking. So yeah, Thanksgiving is weeks away, and it's already become a family spectacle. I don't know whether to brace myself or just preemptively order pizza. How does your sister react when no one eats her food? If she reacts poorly, tries to push people to try or have seconds, and is generally rude about it, then I think suggesting she take control of drinks, chips, and non-baked goods is sensible. But if she doesn't comment or make a big deal, then it really doesn't sound like her cooking badly does any harm. No one eats it. She feels like she's contributed, and all it takes is throwing away the food at the end of the meal. Minimal hassle for a peaceful holiday that everyone enjoys. My brother can't cook, but it's tradition that everyone bring something. We just make sure that he's not the only one with that type of dish. If he's on potatoes, trust me, at least one other person is as well. 2 types of potatoes never hurt anyone, and it solves the issue when he brings something else so unappealingly inedible that most refuse to even try it. Rather than throw it away, it would be better to cover the dish and send it home with her. At least it won't be wasted, as it seems like she likes it. She might also actually realize that nobody else likes it. Everyone is saying OP is the jerk, but I'd be upset too if someone brought some ungodly dish every year and wasted food because no one ate it. If sister will take home the leftovers and eat it, fine. But if she's making something that keeps getting thrown away, then not the jerk, because that's just wasteful. I, 31 male, am unsure how to feel about my girlfriend, who's 27, her bizarre hobby. I need advice. My girlfriend and I have been dating for just over a year. This sounds so cliche, but she's almost perfect for me. She's really into health and fitness, has an excellent career that she's worked really hard for. She's just great, kind, and intelligent. But she lives in a basement suite, which is nicely decorated and she keeps very clean. Any of you that have lived in a basement suite before know that no matter what you do, you get bugs. Ants, piddlebugs, beetles, and spiders. I spent a fair amount of time at her place, and I noticed right away that there was a spider in almost every corner. I asked her about it, and she told me she doesn't hurt them because they eat other bugs. Okay, I did some light research, and sure enough, she was right. I found it a little creepy, but not a deal breaker. Here's where things get weird. About a week and a half ago, I was using her computer, and I noticed a spreadsheet called Babies. Curiosity got the best of me, and I opened it. She lovingly named all of the spiders. She kills the other bugs and feeds them to the spiders and keeps track of it all in a creepy spreadsheet. She keeps track of their food, their color, size, web size, and other info that I didn't really understand. I closed the spreadsheet after I realized what it was about because I felt bad for snooping and I was honestly pretty disturbed. I really love her and I don't want to break up with her, but I'm afraid that this could be a sign of a bigger issue. Has anyone ever heard of anything like this before? Should I say something to her? Is it okay for me to ask her to stop? Is this really that big of a deal? Edit. We live in Australia. You're 31 and you're unsure how a little interest of your girlfriend for over a year makes you feel? She's just logging spider data. Heaven forbid she ever does anything truly bizarre. You might go into shock. OP. You don't think it's weird at all? So long as she isn't bulking them up to have a spider fight club, I think you're okay. Yes, it is weird, but I think collecting stamps is weird. I suggest asking her about it. Apologize for snooping and ask her, but don't accuse her why she enjoys her hobby since it's freaking you out so much. Honestly, I think this is an adorably bizarre hobby. Let her have her quirks. This is pretty harmless in the grand scheme of things. Or you can freak out over this, confront her, and break up in 6 weeks. Your call, dude. Edit. You do realize that people collect spiders, right? It's a legit and perfectly acceptable hobby. If the spiders were in cages, you probably wouldn't think twice about this. She's basically just a free-range spider collector. Big whoop. Update. So I took all of your advice and tried to embrace this part of her life. It was our anniversary last week, and I decided to get her a spider-themed gift. I was at the mall, and one thing led to another, and I ended up buying her a pet tarantula and an aquarium for it. She loved it, but I noticed the beloved spiders were disappearing from around her apartment over the last few days. I asked her about it, and turns out she's been feeding them to her new tarantula. I didn't know how I felt about this. First, she's calling them her babies, and now she's feeding them to her tarantula. I'm just trying not to think about it and hoping she doesn't find a better boyfriend to feed me to one day. Edit. Someone sent me a helpful message about spider food, and it occurred to me that she might not be able to afford real food for it. Although she has a higher salary than me, she's aggressively trying to pay off student loans, so has virtually no extra money. I'm going to buy her a gift card for the pet store tomorrow. Thanks. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that I can't go to her wedding without my son? I, 24 female, have a 5-year-old son named Sam. I had my son at a very young age, as did his father, John, with whom I have a healthy relationship with to this day. John is American and I'm not, so we got married when I got pregnant so we could all live here in the US. My family was not happy with my pregnancy and pretty much shut me out of their lives. John's parents happily accepted me, but they're old, and all the responsibility of caring for Sam falls on us, which means no nights off, no frequent dates, and nothing that generally doesn't involve Sam. The responsibility falls especially on me since I take care of the household while John works long shifts. 6 months ago, my mother called me to tell me that my sister was getting married. During a video call, my sister asked me to be her maid of honor, which I excitedly accepted. However, when I received the invitation, problems arose. The wedding was to be in my country, and each guest was required to cover their own travel, lodging, and clothing expenses. John offered to work overtime so that Sam and I could go, and after months of extra work, I managed to buy a nice dress and book a simple hotel room. A month before the wedding, I called my sister to confirm our attendance, and that's when she informed me that children were not allowed at the ceremony. I told her that wasn't specified on the invitation. It literally wasn't written anywhere, and she said she hoped everyone would just take that for granted. I explained that I didn't have anyone to leave Sam with and reminded her of our financial situation, and she suggested leaving him with John or hiring a nanny. John works long shifts, and we don't have the budget for a nanny. She compared the situation to when I hired a nanny during my father's hospitalization, which seemed pretty stupid to me since it was a medical emergency and not a social event. After an argument, I told her that I would have to decline my role as bridesmaid since I couldn't leave my son. I want to clarify that I never asked her to make an exception for Sam, because I understand that weddings are not places for kids. I'm not an idiot, just a person who doesn't take things for granted. I just wanted her to understand my situation after I told her I couldn't go. She called me selfish and mentioned that she had already paid for my place in the wedding. I offered to reimburse her with the money for the dress, but she just hung up. Now there are 2 weeks left until the wedding, but I keep getting messages from her, calls to insult me, and emails arguing that since I live in the US, I should have enough money for a babysitter, which at least in my opinion is totally ridiculous. I got the money back for the dress and the hotel, and I plan to give it back to John unless my sister claims to cover the wedding expenses, but if she doesn't, well, I don't know if I should offer to her again. It would have been perfectly fine for the sister to not want her young nephew at the ceremony. However, she should have looked for a babysitter for the day and welcomed nephew for the visit. OP couldn't do that from another country. Sister is not someone I would travel so far and spend so much money to support. OP, give the money back to your husband. Are there any household expenses coming up? The fridge working well? Roof's good? How's the car? Is there something you two want that's too much for regular bills? Do you want to save the money for an emergency? Start a college fund for your son? Much better than wasting the money to see someone who just wants to be mean. Am I the jerk for sharing my opinion with my brother and warning him about his wife unprompted? My brother, who's 36, male, and his wife, Emma, who's 35, have known each other for the best part of 2 decades. They were in the same friend group toward the end of high school and lost touch after graduation for a while, but ended up reconnecting when the larger friend group reconnected. Then Emma moved away and they lost touch again. In that time, my brother got married and had kids, who are 11 and 9. Emma moved back about 5 years ago and started spending more time with the old friend group, my brother included, though they didn't seem to get closer until after the passing of one of their shared friends. My brother's marriage to the mother of his kids was never super great. It only got worse when the kids were no longer babies and they separated 4 years ago. Their divorce was finalized a little over 2 years later. Before the divorce was finalized, my brother and Emma started dating. They broke up briefly and got back together, but Emma's attitude towards the kid's mom was incredibly negative around the time of the breakup and remained the same after they got back together. Emma and my brother got engaged fast, and then my brother's ex, the kid's mom, passed away. The kids weren't happy about living with Emma, and less so about Emma trying to step into a motherly role for them. They knew how she felt about their mom, and with her gone, the loyalty pull was stronger and the dislike for Emma more intense. My brother and Emma's wedding day was a crap show, and the kids protested the whole way through, which my brother was aware of, but he said they'd been okay with Emma before, as in before he dated her, so they were just protesting him being with anyone who wasn't their mom. Emma is jealous of their mom. She's jealous the kids still love her. She still hates their mom for reasons I don't know. The kids know how she feels about their mom, and they use it to taunt her. They tell her almost every day that she'll never be as good as their mom, and they will never love her or accept her because she isn't good enough. They compare Emma's cooking to their mom's. They compare the way she decorates, stuff like that. I know they do it, but I also know Emma has kicked up a fuss about the kids keeping their mom's things and having them in their bedrooms, as well as having photographs of her. The household is toxic. Emma's jealousy of their mom grows, and the kids' dislike for Emma grows. My brother acts like things are fine and he's burying his head about the growing issues. I decided not to ignore it and address this with my brother. I told him Emma and the kids are not getting along, and her jealousy is going to make his home even more of a living nightmare than it already is. And I told him I don't think Emma could come back from her jealousy and warned him that she could cost him the kids. He told me he didn't ask for my opinion and to mind my own business. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It sounds like your brother is in denial and pretty much knows what's happening, but he doesn't want to deal with it. With the kids protesting on his wedding day, regardless of it being because of Emma or him marrying anyone else, he should have built that trust and ensured that the trust got built with Emma before getting married. The way you describe it, it wasn't just a little bit of uncomfortableness with their dad moving on. Am I the jerk for requesting that my teacher not partner me with my deadbeat father's daughter? My father walked out on my mom when she was pregnant with me. I'm 16 male. They were married for like 5 years at that point, but he was cheating a lot. Mom trying to divorce him went through heck because they had picked up and moved on. He never met me. He didn't show up at court for their divorce or for custody or for child support. He went to jail 3 times for failure to pay child support and for trying to avoid child support by quitting his jobs and not declaring his new place of employment. I still haven't even met him. But around a year ago, he moved back with his family, the affair partner and their kids. He has a daughter who's 5 months younger than me and a son about a year and a half younger, and other kids who are younger but I don't know their ages. I only know the older two ages because of school and sharing some classes with his daughter. She's tried to connect with me, but I told her I wasn't interested. We're not family. I don't want to know the affair family. Even though she was upset and cried a little in front of me, she didn't give up. And when we returned to our classes in August, she was suddenly in 4 of mine instead of 1 like last year. So I went to our teacher, who assigns a lot of group stuff, and asked her to never pair me with her. I explained the reason why, and she was surprised, but agreed that it would be for the best to avoid hostility during the project, and especially if others are working with us. Twice, she's tried to claim me as a partner or make me part of her group. The first time as her solo partner, and the second time in a bigger group. Both times our teacher refused. This made her realize what I had done. She told her parents, they went to the principal and demanded a meeting with me and my mom. Mom went but left me out of it and explained why to the principal and told him she didn't think the first time I meet my father should be when he wants to go off on me for not working with his daughter. They tried to say I was bullying their daughter and that I should be facing suspension or be forced to make it up to her through some kind of buddy program. The principal didn't take it seriously, but his daughter and son now stare at me a lot more in school for the last couple of weeks, and a couple of her friends said I was such a jerk for embarrassing her like that and not getting to know her. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Be polite, like extremely polite. No, ma'am, I do not wish to engage in conversation with you, and have a wonderful day, and walk away politely when they try to talk to you so you don't get accused of bullying, but no need to be friends. If your father wants you to have a relationship with his family, then he needs to have a relationship with you first. As far as their staring and her friends telling you that you were a jerk, that is bullying. Tell a trusted teacher about the incidents. Say you just want to let them know what's happening. No need to interfere. It might blow over. But if they escalate, then you have already noted to a teacher you were uncomfortable with them beforehand. Karen girlfriend denied my marriage proposal as a joke, so I called the whole thing off. I'm 25, female. My girlfriend, Molly, who's 26, for the last 6 months started a joke with me that I've already made clear that I don't like. It consists of her saying no quickly to anything I ask. I know it sounds silly, but I ask her to get a glass of water for me. She says no, and after 1 minute, I'm almost getting up, she says she's joking and gets some water. I ask her to wash the dishes. She says no. I say I love you. She says no. I ask her to take her clothes. She says no. Everything is joking, and after 30 seconds to a minute, she does it, but she's addicted to doing it. I've already made it clear several times that I don't like it, even more so in I love you. She's the only person I can say that to, so it's special to me. And there are things that are serious, and I need her to answer seriously. And if she says no to everything jokingly, I can't tell when she's saying real no. It's happened before. I keep saying this is boring and I don't like it. She stops doing it and goes back to doing it after a week. After a brief discussion, because she played this prank in front of our friends, me asking, "Love, can you get me some medicine?" and she with, "No, kidding," she stopped doing it for 1 month. Yesterday, we welcomed my parents, in-laws, and 2 of our best friends to our house. Everyone knew that I was going to propose to her, and I called them because we always planned this proposal with our loved ones attending, participating in this special day. I asked her to marry me, and she said a quick no, and I was so grumpy, panicked, and upset, everyone looked in shock. For 30 seconds for her to laugh and say that she was joking, finally saying yes. I was so embarrassed and disappointed. I put the ring back in and said that I'd go take it out to cool off. I didn't even let her say anything. She kept texting me, not answering calls, saying it was just a joke and that I knew she always did that. She said that I left a difficult situation in the house because it was very clear that I had given up on proposing and did in front of my parents and in-laws. She stressed that I was making the situation uncomfortable because of a silly joke. Well, I slept in a hotel and I'm still in it. My parents supported me, but my in-laws are calling me the jerk for giving up on proposing, disproportionately humiliating their daughter. I just really think there's time for jokes, and that moment wasn't clearly. She knew I didn't like it and decided to do it anyway. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why would you sign up for this permanently? Not the jerk. I used to have a boyfriend who did something similar. Every time I wanted to talk about something serious, like something that happened in the world, something that happened at work, something in our relationship, whatever it was, he would always, with 1 minute, make a joke about the subject, trying to diffuse the situation of me telling him about something I cared about and thought about, and it made me feel sad, etc. I asked him to stop 1,000 times, and he always said, it's just him joking and I shouldn't take things serious. I explained to him that this behavior made me feel like he takes nothing that concerns me serious, which he protested against and told me I try to make him look like a bad boyfriend. I tried doing it to him to make him see how it feels, and of course it would be a super drama because I would not take him seriously and I don't care about him. Yeah, right. Eventually I lost all respect and ended the relationship after 2.5 years. I couldn't and wouldn't take him seriously, and quite frankly, the disrespect towards me was making me feel grossed out by him, emotionally and physically. Of course, he complained, did not see this coming, why did I never say anything, etc. Not the jerk. And seriously, overthink this whole relationship. Girlfriend will not change. Girlfriend does not respect your boundaries and feelings. She has shown you who she is, believe her. Move on and find someone who does. Not the jerk. Your girlfriend just learned a much-needed lesson on why you don't joke and say no when you mean yes. And you're not making the situation uncomfortable because of a silly joke. She is. She knew you don't like it, and honestly, who would? That would annoy anyone, but she did it anyway. What next? Is she going to jokingly say no during your ceremony? Not the jerk. Out of all the things that are wrong from her side, one that stands out to me the most is that afterwards she still puts the blame on you and doesn't even apologize. If you see that your partner is hurt by something you did, yes, even a joke, any well-adjusted human would apologize. Also, if other people are not laughing, I wouldn't even call it a joke. And you are correct to think that there is a time and a place for jokes. I can imagine how hurtful and embarrassing it was to hear the no to your proposal in front of your family. Such a jerk move. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their girlfriend? Please let us know. Never stay with someone who doesn't respect you. You deserve better than that. Am I the jerk for not treating my stepkids equally? I started dating Daniel 2.5 years ago, and we got married last year. Daniel has 5 kids with his ex-wife. Ava, who's 11, Jason, who's 9, Isabella, who's 6, Sophia, who's 5, and Andrew, who's 3. Daniel's ex never liked Ava. She blames Ava for leaving her trapped in a relationship with her dad. When they got divorced, she said she didn't want anything to do with Ava. Ava was 8 at the time. Ava's mom leaving but having a relationship with her siblings really took a toll on her. The weeks Ava's siblings were with their mom were the hardest because it was a constant reminder that her mom loved her siblings and not her. She would barely get out of bed those weeks, so around 2 years ago, I surprised her with a day trip to the beach. We got ice cream, we went boogie boarding, went out to eat, and went shopping. It was the first time I'd seen her smile in weeks. I noticed it was helping Ava, so we started to go out more and more. When her siblings are here, it's something small, like dinner before therapy. But when they're not here, we go camping, we go hiking, we try new restaurants, we go back to the beach, etc. And she loves it. I don't spend nearly as much one-on-one time with the other 4 kids for 2 reasons. These kids already have a mom that loves them, and they don't need it as much. It's so much easier to do anything with 1 kid than 5. When I spend time with Ava, I stick her in my Honda and we go. When I have all 5 kids, we take a big passenger van and they fight over everything. It takes twice as long to go somewhere because I keep having to pull over and break up a fight. I do take all 5 kids out 1 to 2 times a week when they're with us, but it's not usually a big trip like what I go on with Ava. We'll go to the beach 20 minutes away instead of the one almost 2 hours away. We'll go on the walking trail by our house instead of a 4-mile hike. Sometimes we have picnics in the park. The big thing this summer is the amusement park. I'll take all of the kids with their dad or their nanny. We go on some rides together. Then one of us will take the older 2 to go on all of the scary rides that they want to go on, while the other takes the younger 3 to go on the smaller rides. Then we meet up at the water park. We've done this at least once a week this summer. Recently, my husband asked me to start taking the younger 4 on day trips like the kind Ava and I go on, because they're starting to get jealous. I said I'll try to plan more fun activities, but my trips with Ava aren't suitable for all 5 kids. He said I should try to treat the kids equally and either not take Ava or take everybody. I said I will when he takes all 5 kids camping or on a 5-mile hike by himself. He called me a bad stepmom, so I wanted to know if I was the jerk. Not the jerk. Why doesn't their father do as much for his kids as you do? I think, given the circumstances, You're not doing anything wrong here, aside from the misleading title. OP. Their dad works a lot and travels a lot for work. They are his responsibility, and he should make time to be with them. He knows how his ex is treating Ava, and you're supporting Ava, but he's demanding that you stop? He is not being a good father. The kids aren't equal. The other 4 have a mother. Ava only has you. Crazily enough, you got yourself in the position where you're Ava's adoptive mom and stepmom to the others. In fact, even though it may make the issues worse, I might suggest you look into legally adopting Ava. That way you have rights to her if you and your husband don't work out. Not the jerk, OP. Your husband is callous and ridiculous. You need to have a serious talk, one-on-one with the others. See if you can nip this complaining in the bud. If he's telling the truth and this isn't originating with the ex as another way to mess with Ava. This is great advice. You and Ava are forming a very strong bond, and adopting her makes sense. Plus, adoption protects her from being ripped away from another important caregiver in the event of a separation or divorce. Well, what do you think? Should OP only take the kids on a trip if all of them can go, or not? Please let us know. Taking 5 kids out on a trip? I think that'd be enough to make my head explode. Am I the jerk for charging an 8-year-old rent? I really don't think I'm the jerk, but hear me out. He gets an allowance every week. This is for helping with the dishes, cleaning his room, and being tidy. Nothing crazy. His allowance is $25, so $100 a month. However, I want to charge the boy $20 a month for living expenses, leaving him $80. His mother thinks there's something wrong with this and that he's young, so his money should be his. My intention is to teach him about money management, as that's something that's very important to me. I have not thought about consequences if he can't pay the rent. There likely wouldn't be any. I'm available for any additional info. Edit. I am the stepfather. I can increase his allowance, but I don't think that's what makes me the jerk. I'm working, but I'll thoroughly look through the responses. I appreciate the feedback. Edit 2. Off of work now. Alright, I'm the jerk. I'm going to give the kid an allowance as I planned anyway. He can save for big purchases for himself, and we can talk about the fun stuff when he's older. I have a savings account for him already that I put money into. I appreciate the caring Redditors messaging me about calling the authorities and asking for my information. I'm glad to know you care, but that won't be necessary. I had a bad idea. I thought it was fun and everyone would win. I would like to thank you all, and I hope that you have a wonderful end to your Wednesday. The vitriol is really strong here. For clarity, father's out of the picture. I'm not stealing from his mother, and I'm providing the allowance. Besides, I've already changed my mind. Wife will have a good time reading this when she gets home. Edit 5. You are all correct in that I didn't think of the implications of taking from my son and the emotional damage that could cause or anxiety within him. That's the last thing I want. Edit. She knew I was the jerk, but feels like I set myself up for failure with this post. She's laughed until she cried, so thank you for that. Yes, this was a real idea I had and a real conversation I had with my spouse. That's not plural. I wasn't pushing anything. And clearly, there wasn't foresight in it. I hope all the parents here can learn from the comments, because truthfully, I feel like we're all just winging raising kids, and no one knows for sure what's in their best interest sometimes. There's more than one way to cook an egg, so to speak. All we can do is learn from each other and our experiences. You're the jerk for charging rent. However, having him put that money into a savings account where he could see it grow would be a better lesson. And $25 a week? At 8? Lucky kid. You're the jerk. If you want to teach him the value of money and saving, continue paying him for his chores and teach him how to save and budget for things he might want. Show him how to save a percentage of his allowance and track it. There are so many more age-appropriate ways to teach your kid how to manage their money. Illegally charging them rent should never be considered one of them. My parents did crap like this to teach me money management. Guess what it taught me instead? That all interactions with my parents are monetized, that they don't actually care about me, and that I can't trust them. That's the only thing they understand is money. My father is now passed, and I barely talked to him when he was sick. I essentially do not speak to my mother. She only initiates conversations with me at this point about, shocker, money. You would be the jerk. I can see how you think this is well-intentioned, but please reconsider and think about other options for helping him learn. You're the jerk. He's 8, and he's legally entitled to a place to live. He should not have had the least or slightest worry about his living costs. There are lots of ways to teach kids to manage money. Talk to him about budgeting and saving, Identify things he wants that he can work for over time. Have age-appropriate discussions of how you manage household income and expenses. Absolutely do not charge kids rent. ETA. One way to teach kids to manage money is to not give an 8-year-old $100 a month. I don't know what your expectations are on that $100. That may mean you pay directly for more school lunches, day camp field trips, etc. Well, what do you think? Would OP be the jerk for charging his 8-year-old rent or not? Please let us know. I made $5 a week when I was little if I did my chores. What about you? Please tell us in the comments. If that's what you really want, Karen. Once upon a time, I was working a seasonal retail job at a craft store chain. It's important to note that for the purposes of their sales, lighted tree toppers, lighted decorations, string lights, etc. were all separate categories. On this fateful day, lighted tree toppers were on sale for 30% off. The rest of the lighted decor on that aisle was not. The sales were very clearly marked and the sections designated clearly, as well as the category printed on the package itself. It's even listed on the email that Karen was using to present her coupon. Karen approaches my register with her tree topper. The register recognizes the discounts and applies them automatically in most instances, this being no exception. The 30% applies itself. Your total will be $18.90. Karen then presents her 20% off coupon. I'm sorry, ma'am. This coupon is not applicable to sale items. Those aren't on sale. The lights aren't on sale this week. I show the copy of our sale bulletin on my counter. I apologize for the confusion, ma'am. This actually falls under the tree topper category. You'll see here it's 30% off. I won't be able to apply the coupon, but you will be getting the already discounted sale price. I'm telling you, I don't want any sale. You're going to take my coupon. I should probably mention she was in at least once weekly, yelled about sales and coupons every single time, and then declared she was never coming back, only to be back the following week to do the same. Ma'am, I would have to manually override the sale price and apply the coupon manually as well. Then do it. I'm telling you, it's not on sale, and I'm using my coupon, or I am reporting you. Yes, ma'am, if you insist. I got visual confirmation from my supervisor in the way of a hand signal we use to mean, go ahead. She was not too happy when I did exactly as she demanded, and her total came to $21.60. You're stealing from me. I demand to speak to a manager. I'm never coming back here again. My shift supervisor had been on the next register over the whole time to combat the afternoon rush. That's how she managed to give the visual approval in the moment. She took great joy herself in telling Karen, you have the exact discounted price you demanded. You can pay for it or leave. Oh, you're never coming back? Do you promise? Karen paid her $21.60 with her head hung. She was back next week. Am I the jerk for publicly telling my biological father that if he wanted to act like my dad, then he had until I was 32 to do so? My mother passed a few months after I was born. My biological father, Dan, stayed for the first 6 years of my life, but he ended up remarrying and moving with his new wife across the country. He left me with my grandparents. Dan would, at best, visit every biannually. He would show up in the morning with some treats and video games for me, talk with me about life, then he would be gone after dinner. Dan's visits became less frequent as I got older. I have many memories of my grandparents calling Dan when they thought I was asleep. They would beg Dan to visit me more or bring me with him to Georgia because a boy needs his father. I still adored Dan and saw him as my hero for many years. Dan stopped visiting me after I tried to ruin his marriage with my selfishness. Dan didn't call me to wish me a happy 13th birthday, so I called him over and over, hoping that he just didn't want to wake me up because of the time difference. His wife, Sarah, answered the phone. Sarah was actually a very sweet lady, and I discovered Sarah didn't even know I existed. Dan told Sarah that he had been visiting California on business and how he was childless. Dan screamed at me later, saying how I deliberately tried to ruin his marriage and how selfish I was to always demand his time. After that point, Dan stopped visiting me, and I view him as nothing more than a donor to me. I live a pretty good life. My job is nothing to brag about in terms of being fun, but it's honest work and pays well. My wonderful wife and I have a daughter, Harper, who is the joy of my life. I tried not to think about Dan until I started getting notifications on social media. I did not think Dan had social media. We also have a very generic surname, so I did not worry about us finding each other. Dan left comments on almost all of our posts about Harper, from her last day of second grade to the newborn pictures. His comments all said how beautiful and bright his granddaughter was. I messaged Dan, telling him he has no right to act like Harper's grandfather and to stay away from my family. He replied that Harper was his granddaughter and he gave me life, so I owe him some respect. I warned him again and blocked him. I made a post the other day, and Dan, on his second account, made a comment about how Harper gets her good looks from her grandpa. I replied to Dan that if he wanted to act like my dad, he had until I was 32 to do so. And he has no right to pretend he's some great father and grandfather when he moved across the country and left me with my grandparents at 6. I blocked Dan again. I learned secondhand that Dan is being shamed online and will likely delete his account soon. Family members said I was right about Dan, but calling him out online was not the mature way to handle things. I realized I could have just blocked him, but for me, you don't get to ditch your kid and then swoop in to act like a family man now that it suits you. Am I the jerk? Edit. My wife and I are now setting all of our social media to private. Not the jerk. This man pretended you didn't exist for most of your life, and I'm sorry at how harsh that sounds. What right does he now have to dance into your life and try to claim your daughter? You ruined his marriage? Nah, mate. He ruined it himself by keeping you a secret from his wife. His beautiful granddaughter? Oh no. He has no claim on your kids after disowning you. Am I the jerk for cutting someone off financially because they were acting entitled? I, 25 female, have an average paying job, doing body piercings, so earn enough to live off. My friend, Lottie, 24 female, who I had been friends with since I was little, did not come from a financially fortunate family and has no job. Extra info. No disabilities, mental disorders, or anything at all to stop her from working. Plus, she has a public transport pass. So ever since I got a job, 16 years old, I supported her financially, treating her to meals and trying to help her avoid takeaways for her well-being. I even paid clothes for her. When she was 18, I paid for 1/4 of her apartment rent and hair salon appointments. Keep in mind, she's on government benefits. This continued, which is absolutely fine, and she always told me she liked the unemployed life as the reason she didn't work. All was okay until No, it doesn't sound like it was all okay. All was okay until I officially started making more money, 21 years old. I began treating her to more designer clothes and shoes, but nothing like Gucci or Chanel, as a treat for being a good friend. She began to meet a few friends, whom of which never knew her financial situation, I presume, and would only wear her best designer clothes around them and high heels and jewelry. I was happy she was wearing them confidently. She started to ask me to bring her friends over to my house a lot. I do not know these people, met a few times, but not introduced properly, and I was okay with that as I know she was a bit insecure, until it became every single week. One night, she asked to throw a quiet, casual gathering at my house while I was at my boyfriend's, which I was entirely fine with. Well, what do I come back to? Beer bottles everywhere, my stuff thrown about the place, my cat scared, my clothes ripped, and multiple of my practice piercing ears ripped. They even made a mess on my bathroom floor. I collected my cats and briefly went to the bedroom, which thank goodness had a lock, whilst waiting for everyone to leave. I heard Lottie and her friend talk. Lottie was talking about how she was grateful that her friends came to her house and that Lottie was making £60,000 a year. She said something along the lines of, "Yes, if you ever need any designer clothes, let me know and I'll buy you some." And that's how I found out all the designer clothes she didn't wear that I bought her were given to her friends, all of whom have jobs. So when everyone left, I was furious. I stormed at her and shouted, "Give me my stuff back and get a job. I will not be supplying for you at all, and I want my stuff back. You're an adult and grown up enough to stop acting like I'm your mummy." She refused to give me my stuff back, so I told her if she didn't give me my stuff back, I would tell her friends about it all. So she obliged and started acting the victim by saying, "But I don't want to work." So I told her to get out, and she did. I spent 3 hours cleaning my place, and 2 weeks later I'm still friends with her, but getting calls from her begging to have money. Everyone in my life thinks I'm a jerk for this update. We aren't friends anymore. Not the jerk. She's a lifelong mooch and not your friend. You have no responsibility for her life and financial situation. You never did. Of course she likes the unemployed life and doesn't want to work. She's getting a free ride off of the government and your hard work. I will say you did kind of set yourself up for this by feeding into her mooching behavior since childhood. But you're both adults now, and able-bodied adults have to work whether we want to or not. That's just life. You really would be doing yourself a favor to cut ties with her and anyone else who doesn't see what an ungrateful leech she is out of your life, and find better friends who truly appreciate when you decide to treat them and don't just constantly have their palms out for your money. Why are you posting here and asking if you're the jerk if you're still friends with her? I'm sorry, but this does make you the jerk. Stop enabling her. She's grown. Honestly, I don't even understand why you've been supporting her all this time, even after she said, "I just like the unemployed life." That should have been your red flag right there. How did you not know she was taking advantage of you with that statement? OP, you're young and really naive. Please put your foot down and cut this person out completely. Grad student told me to do things their way. So here's the context. Some years ago, I worked at a cruise ship doing souvenir photography. It was my second summer there, and we had a new manager that year that was finishing her master's in photography, standard, not digital. Pay was based on a group split commission, so if the day photographers did terrible but the night photographers did amazing, the day photographers benefited, and vice versa. My first year, the owner stopped by to train us and give us specific instructions on how we should photograph guests and why we should be doing it, and saw an increase in sales as a result of it. The owner has been doing it for years and ran multiple locations, so I just listened and did what I was told. Fast forward to year 2. We have this new manager who had not been trained yet, but only received basic instructions and was told to defer to the returning employees for things she didn't understand. For the first couple of weeks, it was fine. Slow start to the season, so sales of course weren't crazy. Come week 5, when night crews start, I noticed that myself and my only male coworker are both being scheduled for mornings. At first I thought, whatever, free at nights, no big deal. I figured since the new manager was working with a returning employee, things would be okay for commission on the night cruise days. First week of night cruises go by, and I notice I made drastically less than last year for the amount of hours I worked. I checked the sales spreadsheet. Every employee needed to update this at the end of their shift, and noticed that day sales were the same as night sales. I ran up to the ticket office to check the passenger list for the days that ran night cruises, assuming that there's just too many passengers. I ran up to the ticket office to check the passengers list for the days they ran night cruises, assuming there just weren't many passengers. Not only were there way more passengers at night than during the day, but I noticed way more waste. Second week, I have a split shift that overlaps with the manager. She pulls me to the side at the beginning of the shift and explains her expectations for photos. She shows me an example of hers and then shows me one I took. She told me that the way I took photos was unacceptable and I had to shoot them the way she did. These photos, by the way, get put into 8x6 sheets and small wallet-sized photos. Her photo was, highly technical, let's say. The entire top half of the photo was negative space and showing off the location. Yeah, sure, I kind of get what she was saying because I was in school for photography too. Too bad we're selling pictures of people and not space. I explained to her that myself and my coworkers have been shooting the way the owner instructed us to, and she said, "I'm the manager here, not you. I don't know what he told you to do, and that's not what we're doing. Do it the way I tell you to, okay?" The third week, I explained to my coworker that this is what the manager wanted, and he was confused as well. So we do it. We take these photos where the passengers are barely visible in the wallet photos, and half of the photos are negative space. Sales plummeted to no surprise from anyone but the manager and owner. I got a call from the owner asking if there were fewer passengers or something, and told him that it was normal. He asked why sales were down at night as well, to which I told him I had no idea because I was never scheduled to work at night anymore. He wasn't sure how to take that, but we left it at that. The next week, the owner called me to inform me that the new manager had agreed to mutually terminate her employment there, and then asked why we were having so much trouble. I told him everything she told us to do, and that scheduling was bad since it left us understaffed for night cruises. It turns out she was instructed to hire new employees for the season, and she ignored every single applicant because they had no formal photography education. So basically, knowing full well it would hurt sales to not tell the owner that the manager just wasn't good at sales photography, I just waited until she got in trouble for turning up losses because she pulled, "You do what I say, I don't care." Sorry, Jay. My ex, Karen, cheated on me and wants me to pretend I'm the father. I, 38 male, had a fight with my ex-wife, 41 female, about her kid, Sam, who's 7, and need an opinion from the outside. We have one son together, Jake, who's 9. Sam is not mine. Our divorce was caused by my wife's infidelity, and I told her up front as she was pregnant I will never take any responsibility for Sam, not emotionally or financially. However, I have figured my emotions out and got them in order to protect my son, Jake. That includes I accept Sam as his little half-brother and allow him on special events to visit me and Jake. Our custody agreement is clear. Every second weekend, Jake visits his mom. So my son had his birthday last month where I allowed Sam and X to visit and celebrate with us. It wasn't something big because of the lockdown, just about 15 people, Jake's friends and some family members. Sam loves to mimic Jake, and as he saw him calling me dad, he started to call me dad too. I have spoken with him calmly that I don't want to be called dad by him, but he is allowed to call me by my name. As he had asked why, I explained that he is not my child and I am not his dad. Also, he asked me who his father is, and I responded that I didn't know. He then ran to my ex and asked who his father was. My ex sent him back to ask me. I just told him that his mom doesn't know it either, but I am not his dad, and again, he should call me by my name. However, on this day, nothing happened after my ex tried to pull this crappy move on me. I just ignored it. The problem is, Sam has told this also to his school friends, as the class have played a game where they talk about their family. I have to say that some of the kids there are pure evil. Some of Sam's classmates have started bullying him, calling him names and worse. My ex called me about it, told her that she has to fight over this with Sam's teacher and the other kids' parents, but it's not my problem. She then started to yell at me on the phone that it was my fault kids are calling him names. I respond that I noticed what she tried to pull at Jake's birthday party, and this actually wouldn't exist if she hadn't had cheated, and told her she should try to find Sam's actual father if she wants a man to take care of her son. X involved our parents in this fight. Now my mom is nagging me over this and sides with my ex. However, I was not gentle with her either when she called me. Notice, my mom wanted a daughter ever since and saw my wife as her first daughter. That's why I'm in low contact with her, because she tried to force me to forgive my ex. Here's why I might be the jerk. My son has picked up on this whole mess and is now mean to his little brother and rejects to play with him and teases him as well. I've actually made an appointment with a therapist to solve this, but I don't think I can solve it on my own. Am I the jerk here? Edit. I can't be the father of Sam, medically impossible. Also, a court-ordered paternity test confirmed that I am not the father. I called out my Karen wife on social media after she lied. We finally have gone no contact with my mom. It was a long, hard decision, but she and my wife are just fundamentally unable to get along and recently had a vicious fight, and I knew I had to put my wife first. This fight was so bad, my mom didn't even protest to the no contact. We're just done with each other, but I can't say that it hasn't been gut-wrenching. My mom has given her version of the story to everyone, so I get that my wife wants to defend herself, but I hate that she's posting on social media because I find that tacky, and my mom just told people verbally. Anyway, my wife made a couple posts about my mom's behavior over the years, which hey, they were true, but then she claimed my mom wore white to our wedding. She didn't, and she posted a picture to prove it. The picture is not from our wedding. It's from my mom's own wedding, and my wife labeled it as the mother-son dance. I was mortified. I don't even care about the white dress, but the man my mom was with was her husband, not me. The face was cropped out, and I felt humiliated. He was holding her very close, and it was honestly really sweet, but not at all how our mother-son dance was. Heck, my mom was stiff during the actual mother-son dance. I know some families are more affectionate, but I would just never do that. I asked my wife to take it down, and she refused. I took it into my own hands and commented, "Honey, think you're confused. That's stepdad. Remember, that was their wedding." She actually wore green to ours, and I posted the pictures for proof. My wife was furious and deeply hurt. She broke down crying and said I publicly humiliated her and sided with my mom. She said she just wanted a little bit of petty revenge and I should have taken her side. It's been a day and she is still clearly upset. Not the jerk. She publicly humiliated herself by acting like a petty teen engaged in a social media smear campaign. This 100%. That's high school BS. Super gross. Airing dirty laundry on social media already sucks. This is another level and would leave a bad taste in my mouth for a while, regardless of current standing with the mother. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your wife is immature for doing that. Why would she post such a thing, not considering your feelings about it, much less your mother's? Even if you guys are at odds with her. She deserved being called out. Next time, she'll be mindful of what she posts. Wife sounds like a drama queen. You're the jerk. What is it with you mommy's boys who always side with your mother over your wife? My ex-husband used to do this and it drove me crazy. When you get married, you need to start backing your wife in whatever the issue is. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong, which is always subjective. You need to respect and love your wife and just shut up and follow her lead. After my divorce, I found a good man who backs me no matter what. He works long hours so I can stay home and have a good life. He comes home and cooks dinner for us every night because he knows I hate to do it. He doesn't try to control which guy friends I can or can't hang out with like my ex did. Hubby doesn't even mind me staying the night at a guy's friend's place if I want to. Why is my husband okay with these things? Because he respects me and doesn't try to control what I do like it's the 50s. I hope your wife finds a man who respects her like I did. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Spreading lies about someone because you got into a fight with them is just not cool. Even I wouldn't do something like that. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter she can live with me on one condition? I, 34 male, had a kid 10 years ago, Nova, who is 10 now. I was a terrible person back then. I didn't stay in her life and I deeply regret it. A few months ago, I contacted her mom to see if I can see my kid. She happily agreed to co-parent with me and seemed relieved, which was understandable considering she has 4 other kids who are all younger than Nova. Nova was a bit distant at first, but now we're doing better. She's generally a very good kid, but something I realized about her is that no punishment seems to work on her, and also she can be very disrespectful at times. If I tell her to do something as a punishment, she won't do it. Or if I ground her, she will just leave without my permission. I asked her mom how she punishes her, and she said she has never punished her before. What I've heard from Nova is that it seems like she would just lose it on her and yell at her, which I don't think are good punishments for a kid. 2 nights ago, Nova asked me if she can live with me from now on. I told her I'd love it, but she can live with me under one condition. She has to follow my rules and be respectful. She didn't say anything after that. After she went back to her mom's home, my mom, who was there when Nova asked me this, told me that I was a jerk because if a kid is asking her deadbeat dad to take her in, there must be something very wrong. So you don't make conditions for her, you just say yes and take her in. Was I really the jerk in this situation? I can't be a parent if she doesn't listen to me, but now both my mom and daughter refuse to talk to me. Her mom will likely have no problem with this. She seems too busy with her other kids, and I think she would like being the weekend's fun parent, so that's not really a problem. Edit. I took Nova out for an ice cream and asked her why she wants to live with me. She said, "I don't want to live with you anymore. You're just going to send me back anyway." I apologized to her and told her that I would never send her back, and I would be very happy if she lived with me. I just want to know the reason. After talking for a while, she said, "I just want to sleep." Turns out, after she started coming to my home, her mom gave her bedroom to her younger sisters, one of them is a baby, and they cry all night and keep her awake. I told her I will talk to her mom and she will stay with me from now on, and that we're going to have some rules, and I expect her to follow them, but even if she doesn't, I will still love her and I won't leave her again. She said she's going to try, but she won't promise because apparently annoying me is fun. I called her mom, and as I expected, she has no problem with this and is willing to let her live with me. Oh gosh, you're the jerk. I think you're trying to do what you think is best, but I agree with your mom. Your 10-year-old daughter living with you shouldn't be conditional. If it works for everyone, you say yes, then work on communication and discipline. You're not the only one who has to learn, she does too. If she had no discipline whatsoever, she'll be stepping into a whole different world, and it might be difficult to adjust. She's just a kid who hasn't had the best or fairest life by the sounds of things. You possibly hurt her and let her down, thinking that that's all you care about, and you just don't want trouble. I agree, but OP, please take parenting classes. Kids need structure and limits, but they don't need constant punishments. You've been a parent for a few months, and with all due respect, you have no idea what you're doing. None of us do. but most of us have 10 years of practice before having to parent a 10-year-old. Read some books, sign up for a class, please. Just remember, social sciences have come a long way from where they were when our parents raised us. I recommend child psychology audiobooks in the car. It's fascinating and will save you so much energy and grief. You're the jerk big time. Your love for her has been conditional and continues to be conditional. She needs attachment to a parent, someone she can trust. What you should have done is talk to her mother, then take her in and find professional help and guidance for both of you. Telling your daughter it will be all right whatever happens, that you want her, even if she's not perfect. I totally understand why she's acting up and testing you. She has now learned that she can only be accepted if she behaves exactly like you want her to, which is not a great basis to have, especially as a girl. You're the jerk. It's one thing to expect obedience from a 10-year-old. It's quite another to actually make it a condition to allow her to live with you. It's okay to set boundaries for your kid. It's okay to have rules. It's okay to punish them if they break the rules, within reason of course. But it's not okay to expect a 10-year-old to be obedient 100% of the time at the risk of being sent away. Not the jerk. I wouldn't want her living in my house either if she can't follow basic rules. Her mother has completely failed in raising her. Big surprise there. And this impossible burden should not fall on you now. It's her mother's fault that she's like this, and honestly, there is nothing that can be done about it. By the age of 10, kids are set in their ways, and no matter how much you attempt to fix the damage, in the end it will not work. And for you morons who will try to argue with me, look, Karen, just because you listen to some stupid podcast about new age parenting doesn't make you an expert. Experience, which I have quite a bit of, is what makes you an expert. Trust me, I've had more than a few kids myself, and the ones who ended up broken and confused were the ones whose mothers kept them away from the good solid upbringing that I would have provided them with. My 2 sons, who I was actually able to raise, only due to their mother passing, both ended up successful and now have their own families. My 3 daughters and 4 sons, whose mothers took them and left, they all ended up living sad, miserable lives, and I honestly want nothing to do with a lot of them. Every now and then, one will reach out and want to know why I didn't try harder to be in their lives, how they want to try to build a relationship with me and start over. I tell them the same thing every time. Just ask your mother why I wasn't around, and until she tells you the truth, stop bothering me. I've got more important things to do. She taught you to hate me with her lies, so guess what? The feeling is mutual, kid. Then they complain about me more and say how horrible I am. Sure, keep telling yourself that, kiddo. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Bruh. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for setting this condition or not? Please let us know. I imagine parenting is the hardest job in the world, and the salary's pretty much non-existent. My £8 50 revenge on my cheating, thieving ex. When I was at uni, I started dating this guy. At first, he was wonderful, dedicated to his studies, fun to be around, attentive, and always surprising me with things, working hard at his job, etc. Then, bit by bit, things unraveled. He started skipping classes, then he barely bothered to go at all. Worse still, he never helped around the house, never washed up, cleaned up, did laundry, nothing. He was even fired from his job for too many no-shows. All he wanted to do was sit at home and play Xbox or browse the message boards or forums. This was in the days before social media, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. This left me having to pick up extra shifts, sometimes double and triple shifts, all while going to class and studying. I later learned that this was a pattern for him. He'd be really dedicated to whatever he set his heart on, but then get bored and fall back into his old bad habits. Then he'd find a new passion and rinse and repeat. I knew I should have ended the relationship much sooner, but I held out hope that he would snap out of it, that maybe it was just exam stress getting to him. I desperately wanted things to go back to how they were, but it was not meant to be. I caught him cheating and threw him out. I was so stressed with everything that it wasn't until the next day that our joint savings account crossed my mind. There was a little over £5,000 in there, and bar a few hundred from him, the rest was money I had saved. I checked the account and it was all gone. My ex had cleaned out the account and moved into a new flat with his side chick. I called the bank. There was nothing they could do. He was authorized on the account. I contacted the police. They told me there was nothing they could do since it was a joint account, so nothing criminal had happened. They suggested taking it to civil court, but said I'd probably spend more money than I got back in legal fees, so it likely wasn't worth it. My ex had stolen £5,000 and there was nothing I could do about it. I felt like such an idiot. I got even angrier when I saw his posts on various forums boasting about his new game consoles, new games, new TVs and gadgets, all bought with my money. I'm not usually a vengeful person, petty on occasion, sure, but I've never wanted to exact revenge as much as I did right then, and I knew just how to do it. While I was a student, I temped every summer to help pay for my studies. One such job had been for a debt collection agency. The work was crappy, as you can imagine, but it paid really well, and it was only for a few months. My ex had been dodging debt for many years, and he was very proud of that fact. He was also proud of the fact that his debt was close to being statute barred, and he hadn't paid a penny. For those of you who don't know, in the UK, creditors have about 6 years to collect a debt, and then it becomes statute barred. That means that money is still owed, but creditors have no legal way to enforce payment, such as using bailiffs. My ex was a few months away from reaching statute barred status. However, what a lot of people don't know is that making a payment on that debt resets the clock. If you pay any amount, then that 6 years starts from scratch. Previously, I had used my insider knowledge to help him dodge the debt. Now I would use it to get him where it hurt. By the end of our relationship, I was handling everything, including his debts. I had the paperwork, so I knew who he owed and how much. I called his creditors up. I was honest and said I was a friend calling to make a payment on his behalf. I didn't pretend to be him because that would be a big legal no-no. They weren't allowed to discuss any details, but they were able to take payment. I paid the minimum I could on each debt, about £1 on most, but one had a minimum payment of £1.50. It was the best £8.50 I have ever spent. I also made sure to give them his new address and contact details, as well as his parents' address. Having worked in the biz, I knew they wouldn't change the address since I wasn't the account holder, but they would note it. They had various systems where they could search for his name against that address and see if anything came up. If they got a hit, they had changed the address. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait. A few months rolled by, then it happened. His posts on the forums went from boasting about his new gaming PC to panic about a court date. He called me and begged me for advice. I told him to buzz off. Seeing I wouldn't help, he asked for advice in the forums. One of his online friends told him not to turn up to court. That way, they wouldn't be able to prosecute without him there. It was terrible advice that was 100% untrue. In fact, not showing up is one of the worst things you can do, especially in civil court. This was getting better and better. The court date came and went. My ex naturally didn't go. A few weeks later, my ex posted photos of his empty flat. Bailiffs had cleaned him out and taken every last one of his shiny new gadgets and toys. On top of that, he ended up with several CCJs, county court judgments. These are a big deal and can seriously damage your credit history, making it hard to get bank accounts outside of basic ones, near impossible to get credit, including getting a mortgage. And it can also make it hard to rent a place since many landlords don't like renting to people with CCJs as they're considered high risk. He also won't be able to find jobs in the financial sector. Now that he was broke and didn't have nice things, his side chick left him. I never got my £5,000 back, but it felt good to see everything he bought with his ill-gotten gains taken away. Hope that £5,000 was worth it. For anyone wondering how a student accrued 6 years of debt, he started at the university I attended when he was 25. He had initially gone to a different university at 18, but dropped out at 19 and went into the world of work. Then he convinced his parents to fund a business degree. He wanted to become an entrepreneur, and for anyone worried about the age gap, I deferred my uni start date by a few years so I could travel. I was 22 when we started dating. He was 26. You learned a lesson too. No joint accounts unless married. It's too easy to cut and run otherwise, and nothing can be done. This won't stop an account from being cleaned out, but can be brought up in divorce proceedings. OP. Yes, it was a very hard but important lesson. I just wish it hadn't cost me £5,000. It was my own stupid fault. I took that lesson to heart. I live near a military base in the US, and I've heard horror stories of young Marines giving their girlfriends access to their accounts, or even signing a power of attorney for them, go overseas on deployment, and then come home to find an empty apartment or house, accounts emptied, etc. There are some truly heartless people out there. Am I the jerk for encouraging my ex-husband to take a DNA test and potentially destroying his family? Me and my ex-husband, James, tried for almost 7 years to have a baby. James was someone who didn't like going to the doctor to solve fertility things and believed it should be in a natural way without medicine. He even encouraged me not to have an annual checkup. During those years, he blamed me that we were unable to have kids. Toxic relationship, I know. We broke up after a huge fight in which he accused me of being a sterile jerk. The plot twist of the story is that after meeting my current husband and we started trying, because of various comments from James in the past, I soon decided to solve my fertility problem. To my big shock, everything is healthy, and I could have had a kid for years probably. And when I talked about my past trying to conceive, the doctor pointed out the possibility of James' infertility, which makes sense. I have 3 kids, who are 4, 4, and 2. James and I still have mutual friends and have already met after the divorce, but since I moved out of town, I hadn't seen him in about 3 years until recently at a kid's party for my friend's son. I met up with James and we started talking. Currently, we have an okay relationship, no hard feelings. He said he was engaged and had a 7-month-old son. I said that I had 3 kids, and he told me, "I'm happy for you. You managed to solve your infertility and got your family." I just gave him a giggle and told him, "Honey, infertility wasn't on my side. I was able to have kids with you too." The matter stopped there, and I went to another corner of the party. Yesterday, I got a random call from an unknown number. When I answered it, it was the fiancé, ex now, yelling at me that I had meddled in my ex's life and encouraged him to take a DNA test, which came out him not being the father, and now James has called off their wedding. She said I destroyed their family by meddling in their lives. My friend said I shouldn't have intruded. I didn't encourage it. It was a normal conversation, and he didn't even reply to this. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. All you did was tell him that you didn't have any infertility issues. What he did with that information is all on him. You didn't ruin his family. You saved him from being married to a woman who cheated on him. Not the jerk. The ex-fiancé is just mad because she lied and cheated, and now he knows the truth. Plus, you're right. You only had a conversation with the man. You didn't tell him to do anything. Am I the jerk for picking up my sister when she didn't want to babysit and causing the parents to lose $250? I'm 20, female. My younger sister, who's 15, came to visit our city for a few weeks as part of her summer vacation. She split her time between my place and her aunt's, who's 30, place. My aunt has 2 toddlers and is currently on maternity leave. While my sister was at my aunt's, she spent most of her time babysitting, unpaid, while my aunt went out to see friends, get her nails done, dates with husband, etc. Every single day she was there, she was babysitting for between 4 to 8 hours a day. There was one day where my aunt was gone all day, came home briefly, and then went back out again for the evening, leaving my sister with the kids literally all day. A few days ago, I asked my sister if she wanted to come to Dave & Buster's with me and some friends. She tells me she really wants to, but she can't because she's babysitting again. I told her that she's allowed to decline. She was a bit scared to say no, but yesterday she told my aunt that she can't babysit on Friday, today. My aunt says too bad. They have a dinner reservation at an expensive restaurant and will lose the deposit, $250, if they don't show up. My sister told my aunt that she was exhausted from babysitting, but my aunt basically said, "Sorry, but she has to stay and watch the kids." My sister was disappointed, but didn't put up any more fight. At that point, I decided to intervene and told my aunt I'd be picking up my sister on Friday, and that's the end of it. She sent me a whole bunch of texts after that, but honestly, I didn't reply or even read them. I show up to pick up my sister, and my aunt comes out to my car yelling at me. She says it's not my business what my sister does, and she's staying. I ignored my aunt and saw my sister at the door and yelled over to her to come get in the car. She did. My aunt couldn't believe that she was actually leaving and started yelling at my sister too. My sister looked scared, but I told her to just get in the car. We drove away. They couldn't find a replacement babysitter last minute and ended up missing their reservation and being charged for that cancellation. My mom is with me on this and said I did good for getting my sister out of the house, but another aunt heard about this story and she told me I shouldn't have picked up my sister after aunt number 1 said she had already had dinner reservations. She also said that I shouldn't have intervened and should have let my sister learn to stand up for herself. So now I'm questioning if I should have let my sister stay there and learn a lesson in standing up to people, or if I did the right thing. Am I the jerk for picking up my sister and leaving? Not the jerk. I'm glad your mom is on your sister's side. She should learn to stick up for herself. She's 15 and being used by her aunt. You did the right thing. ETA. The person who needs to learn here is your aunt, not to take advantage of people. The mom could also file against the aunt for not paying the sister for performing childcare. Do they realize that? Yeah, aunt number 1 owes the sister a minimum of $15 an hour, and I'm guessing that's a couple $1,000s at this point. Not the jerk. And thank you for doing that. Your sister is not free babysitting and not at the whim of your aunt. Also, shouldn't your aunt be bonding with the kids? Not sure how long maternity leave is where you are, but even a year, I'd expect the mother to be with the baby a little more. I know parents need breaks, but a whole day? Not the jerk. OP. 18 months maternity leave. I don't have kids, so maybe I don't know how hard it is, but I was starting to feel like the babysitting was excessive, especially since my aunt has been off work for almost a year already and gets lots of help from her in-laws with the kids. I just didn't think it's my 15-year-old sister's responsibility for helping my aunt so much on her summer break. Will a plot number work for the address? My dad passed when I was 10 years old, and this story takes place about a year or two afterwards. I honestly don't remember exactly how long it had been since a lot had been going on to blur those years together, but I do remember my mom was still very distraught about this. I think this was one of the first times I actually saw her leave the house since it happened. Also, I'm naturally very tiny, so while I was probably like 12, I definitely looked at least half that. On this fateful day, I had to go to the doctor's office. I think I had pink eye, but again, I don't really remember. My mom set me down in the little receptionist office and grabs the paperwork to fill out. My mom's always used humor to deflect her pain, so it wasn't strange to hear her mumble, "Second guardian, parent address. I don't know how Heaven's address system works. Guess that's gonna be left blank." What was strange was when she returned to the receptionist counter. I was bored out of my mind and it was a tiny waiting room, so all I could do was watch the scene unfold. My mom turns to come sit with me again, but is stopped. "Excuse me, ma'am." My mom turns around to face the receptionist. "Yes?" "You didn't finish your paperwork." My mom, ready to do her job and ensure her daughter had medical care ASAP, grabs the paperwork off the counter. She flips through it. "No, looks like I got it all." "Ma'am, we need a second parent listed." "Oh, he's no longer in the picture." "I'm sorry, but I still need an address." My mom lowers her voice, almost too quiet to hear. "I mean, he passed recently. I don't have an address." "Ma'am, I can't file the paperwork without one." Her voice is no longer lowered. "He's passed away. I can't give you one." "Then I can't file the paperwork." "So you're telling me I need my deceased husband's current address to get his daughter looked at?" "Yes, ma'am. I can't file the paperwork until it's been completed." My mom isn't normally one to make a scene, especially not somewhere like a doctor's office. Keyword, normally. I watch my mom open her mouth, close it, take in a deep breath, and nod. My mom then spoke loud. I almost think she embellished the heartbreak in her voice, making sure everyone else could hear. "Well, I hope a plot number works for my husband's address, because that's all I can give you." The woman immediately starts to panic. There's no way her bosses didn't just hear that, and I could already see people standing up, I assume to defend my mom's honor. She started trying to take the paper from my mom's hands. No, don't worry, I don't need one, this is good enough." She glared at the woman. "No, you said you can't file without an address, so I'm giving you one." My mom's also super stubborn when she gets frustrated. She held onto those papers like they were my dad's final words. Tears were streaming down her face, though I'm still not sure if it was from anger, grief, or an equal mix of both as she had scribbled out his plot number. She didn't move from the desk, but it didn't matter. Everyone was looking at her in stunned silence. My mom had to grab her phone to get the proper number, which involved returning to our seats where her purse was. Everyone turned to glare at the receptionist when they saw my poor mom had a kid. When she did return with her phone, a different woman was standing up front. She politely told my mom the plot number wasn't necessary, apologized for the other person, and told her that she could happily return to her seat if she likes. Did I already mention my mother is stubborn when she's upset? The tears were still coming, but my mom had a blank expression. You cannot file my paperwork without a second parent's address. I will provide you with one. And after a second of navigating her phone, confirmed what she wrote down was correct and returned to our seats. The other receptionist did not return while we were there. I also remember my mom being pleasantly surprised when she went over the bill for that. Got a hefty discount, like 60% off. Edit. Thanks to everyone for the awards. I've been having a laughing cry as I read everyone's own stories of stupid policies and gallows humor. I told my mom she's internet famous, and she said she's glad it's because of this story and not the few times she's become a full-blown Karen. Am I the jerk for blocking access to my food and threatening no help with accommodation? I, 22 male, am in my first serious relationship with H, 25 female. We've been together for just under a year. She moved into my place 3 months ago. Everything was fine in the beginning, but once we started seeing each other more frequently, I noticed her bad habit. Every time we went out and food was involved, she would sample my food before I got to it. We're not just talking about a chip here or there from my chip sandwich. In actual classy places, she would take the first chunk of my steak, salmon, or cake. You name it, she would take the first bite. I had several talks with her about this, but she said it was cute and not sinister. 4 months ago, H got a job with training opportunity. After completion, when she returns to her normal place, the salary will be higher. My place is 40 minutes closer than where she used to live, and I offered her to live with me rent-free if she stopped this behavior. The first month, she stuck to our agreement. The second month, she slipped up a few times. This last month, she has gone back to her old ways. Last weekend, a turning point. I bake, it's my hobby, so I made a cake. After dividing it into 8, I left it in the fridge while I went out with a friend. Usually when I bake and friends drop me off, I will fetch a few slices and thank them for the lift home with the cake. Imagine my surprise when I saw that each piece had a bite taken. I phoned my friend that I owed him cake and he needn't wait for me to come back down. I was angry. I told her that she had embarrassed me and we needed to figure out a solution. She went defensive and said she ate it due to loving me so much, that this is normal and that I should love it. I made it very clear that she needed to stop now or there would be consequences. Next day, I bought a lockbox for the fridge. She was livid, but couldn't do much. Last night, she broke the lock and had taken a bite out of all of my snacks and 2 slices of baguettes in there. I told her to pack her stuff and leave while I stay with my mother for a few hours. She called me the jerk for making her homeless and possibly ruining her employment opportunities. Reddit, am I the jerk? This is not cute, and the fact that she thinks it is shows complete immaturity. Taking a bite out of every slice of cake doesn't show love, it shows selfishness because nobody else can have a piece. She will likely be a controlling, possessive partner as time goes on, and you'd be so much better off not just kicking her out, but ending the relationship as well. Not the jerk. Entitled mom demands my deaf employee apologize for ignoring her. For reference, I've spent 15 years of my life being a restaurant general manager. I've got some crazy stories. Anyways, I was reminiscing lately and this story came up. Not even sure if this belongs here. We've got entitled mom, we've got deaf employee. It was Mother's Day, one of the busiest days at my restaurant. Quick service, self-seating, casual dining. Entitled mom already ordered, had her buzzer, and was waiting for a table to open. She sees another family get up and immediately runs to the dirty table to reserve it. No big deal, right? Just need to bus it. Entitled mom sees deaf employee and begins yelling at her from behind, so deaf employee doesn't notice anything at all. Entitled mom continues to berate and follow deaf employee. Now I understand that there is no sign saying my employee was deaf, but I believe a normal person would realize that something was off after getting no acknowledgement at all. I noticed something going on and walked over to the already irate entitled mom and asked if I could help. Entitled mom goes off about my employee ignoring her request to clean off the table and help her family sit down. I apologized to Karen and I explained that my employee didn't respond to her shouts because she's deaf and genuinely had no idea what she was trying to say to her. I signaled one of my bussers to come clear the table while I continued speaking with Karen. This is when Karen accused me of lying about my employee. She demanded to know why I would hire someone who couldn't respond to her shouts and demands. I was getting very annoyed at this. I explained that I didn't need to justify any of my hiring decisions and that I 100% stood behind my team. Entitled Mom began demanding that I fire my deaf employee. Entitled Mom said that there was no use for this employee to work in a restaurant. This had me fuming. At this point, her table had been bussed. Her kids were sitting, looking quite embarrassed, and her buzzer was going off, informing her that her food was ready for pickup at the counter. To me, there was no reason to continue with Karen, especially on such a busy day. I asked if she needed help picking up her food or not, and if not, I wished her a good meal and excused myself. Entitled Mom was not done with my team. She again saw my deaf employee restocking some items and decided to prove me wrong. Entitled Mom approached them and again started to berate her by using very mean language. When deaf employee turned to face Entitled Mom and realized that she was being yelled at, employee was frightened and confused. I never allow my employees to be harassed, and this was especially evil. I immediately had my expo counter pack the woman's order to go, handed it to this woman, and told her to leave. Entitled Mom called me names and told me she was going to contact corporate and have me fired. Yeah, okay, like I've never heard that before. I escorted Entitled Mom and her kids to the door and told Entitled Mom she was not welcome back in my restaurant. Side note, in case you were worried about my employee. She was crying and confused by the situation. I sat with her in my office and explained that this had nothing to do with her and she was an amazing employee, which was absolutely true. Employee worked for me for over 5 years and was the first deaf employee to be a certified trainer for her position in the company. I still keep in contact with her, and she is genuinely such a special person. The nerve of some people. You could tell Entitled Mom has never worked a service job in her life. Her parents probably spoiled her as a kid, and now she thinks she's entitled to it. I dealt with a few of those types in many of the service jobs I've had. Just don't give in to their crap, and don't respond to their spewing words with emotions. No calls and I can't leave the floor? Okay. This story harkens back to ye olden days when Blockbuster and Hollywood Video were the things to do on a family-friendly Friday, and cell phones were still something most people didn't really consider necessary, aka the 90s. I took a job at a video store near my house. It was a small, family-owned store with 3 different branches in town. The job was wonderful. I loved movies and games. It was close to my residence and school. I even got free video rentals and a discount from the sub shop next door. The video store was located in a beautiful old building from the 1920s. It had marble stairs and a really amazing cage elevator that led up to the storage and employee lounge. The job was perfect for me. The hours were flexible, the pay was decent, but the only one drawback was that my supervisor, let's call her Amanda because that was her name. Seriously, forget Amanda. Amanda was on the older side and seemed to not be content with how her life had turned out. As a result, she took all of her frustrations out on anyone she could, especially those people who she worked with who happened to be younger. If you were a college student like myself, you earned a special extra helping of disdain from her. I mean, really, how dare you decide to actually have aspirations of making more than $7.50 an hour? While I'm generally fairly tolerant of people like Amanda, she really went the extra mile to annoy me as much as humanly possible. She was bitter, mean, petty, and did anything and everything she could to just be plain unpleasant. She wasn't even nice to customers. The only upside to this attitude was that she didn't let Karen customers get away with their Karenness. I might have been able to take more if she happened to be particularly knowledgeable or good at her job. She was neither and only appeared to have the job because of good old nepotism. She was the daughter-in-law of the owner. She knew nothing about movies or games or gaming systems or anything we rented or sold. When a customer had a question, she would pawn them off on another employee. When she had a problem with the computers, who did she call to fix it? Me. When there was a delivery that needed to be checked into the system, who did she call? Me. When stock needed to be dragged up to the stockroom, that's me again. Any unpleasant task that came up, she would always try to give it to me. Generally, she hid in the back watching TV or talking on the phone, which did tie up the store's landline for literally hours, or doing anything and everything she could to avoid doing her actual job. When I brought up Amanda to Ken, the owner, he simply sighed and gave me a pained look and asked me to just try to bear with it and to stay out of her way if I could. I got the distinct impression that Ken didn't much care for her either, but she was his daughter-in-law. He did try his best to try to make sure I wasn't scheduled to work with her, but at least once a week I had to work with this paragon of kindness and light. One day I was on the phone with a customer discussing the late fees on their account when Amanda wanted to make a call. This resulted in Amanda ripping me a new one in front of an entire store of people. It was on a Saturday and we were packed to the rafters. She was yelling so loudly that the woman on the phone asked me if we were being robbed and whether she should call the police. Before I could answer, Amanda yanked the phone out of my hand and slammed it into the cradle. "You are never, ever to be on that phone. You understand me?" While I was desperately aching to headbutt her, I bit my tongue, took a deep breath, counted to 10. When that didn't work, I counted to 20, then 50. Instead of telling her that I hoped rabid wolverines would get her, I simply smiled and said, "All right." This seemed to annoy her even more than if I'd gotten angry. She stormed back to the office and I took a stream of customers, all of whom asked me if I was okay, and one offered suggestions on how to get rid of her. I appreciated the suggestions, but I had plenty of my own ideas. I checked it off in my big book of voodoo curses and hoped I would have a chance to pay Amanda back for her thoughtful gesture of embarrassing me in front of half of the metropolitan area. Still, there were a few more pieces to be laid out for my malicious compliance, and Amanda wouldn't disappoint me. The next piece came, perhaps a month later. I had been at work for about 7 hours of my 9-hour shift and had only seen Amanda once, and that had been when she left the store. Considering I only had 2 hours left of my shift and hadn't yet taken a break, I really needed to go to the bathroom. I told my coworker I was heading to the restroom. This was, however, apparently not in keeping with Amanda's view for the universe. She actually began to bang and kick the bathroom door, demanding I come out. I took my time, washed my hands, adjusted my hair, and calmly walked out of the bathroom. While she began to scream, I ignored her and walked up to the front of the store and took the cart of movies to be reshelved. She grabbed the front of the cart and swiped the movies off the top. She then informed me of my questionable parentage and started calling me names. Amanda told me that under no uncertain terms was I to ever leave the floor while I was on the clock. Again, I summoned an inner calm that would have made Gandhi proud. I forced a smile and nodded. All right. While I seemed calm on the outside, I had made up my mind that I would have my chance. No matter how small, I would have my moment. That shining moment came on a lazy and blissfully quiet morning. As it was a morning, it would just be me and Amanda. Hopefully she would stay in the office and I wouldn't have to deal with her at all. When I came in, there were workmen in the back working on the elevator. One of the guys came up and told me that he needed a part and he would be back tomorrow to finish up the work. Annoying, as I would now have to take armfuls of heavy tapes up the stairs, but it wasn't the end of the world. The light of my life arrived a few hours later without a word to anyone. I stood at the front putting "Be kind, rewind" stickers on a batch of new arrivals when I noticed Amanda through the back door getting into the elevator. After the man told me that he needed a part, it didn't even occur to me that the elevator had the power on, and I had a moment of amusement at thinking that Amanda was going to have to take the hated stairs. She was, above all, lazy. However, it seemed the elevator did indeed have power and it worked. At least it worked just enough to go up half of a floor and then stop. It was just close enough to the upper floor that climbing out onto that floor was impossible, and just far enough from the lower floor that climbing out was impossible. I couldn't believe my eyes. Malicious compliance activated. I couldn't entirely see Amanda as she tried to open the door and get out, but I could hear her. The sounds of frustration increased until I heard the most beautiful sound I ever heard. Amanda. "OP!" A slow smile, reminiscent of the Grinch, curved my lips. I walked to the very edge of the sales floor and called out. "Yes?" Amanda. "The elevator is stuck. Can you open the door from your side?" Me. "I don't know. I can't see it from here." She huffed in annoyance. "Well, get over here and try to open it." "I can't do that, Amanda." "Why not?" Me. "I'm not allowed to leave the floor while I'm on the clock under any circumstances." "Are you kidding me?" "You said it yourself. Since I value my job, I can't possibly go against orders." "Call maintenance. The number should be in the office." Trying to sound as innocent and sympathetic as I could possibly manage, while also trying not to burst out laughing, "I can't do that either. I'd have to leave the floor to go to the office." "You think you're real funny, don't you?" "I don't know what you mean." "Call Ken then. I know you know his number." "Well, I would, but I'm not allowed to use the phone, remember?" Amazingly, she stopped. There was not even one word telling me that my parents were never married. It was silent. I think for the first time she realized that she might actually be in a little trouble. She was stuck in a position entirely of her own making, with no way out of it for the foreseeable future. Amanda. OP, please, just get me out of here. I'm sorry, Amanda. I'm just following orders. All pretense and niceness was dropped as she proceeded to inform me of all of my imagined faults and those of my parents, friends, and any other relations I might have or think to have in the future. Then she sealed her fate. She yelled at me that I was fired. In truth, I really only planned on letting her stew for a few minutes, but after that, nah. Me. I'm fired? Okay, then I guess I'll head home. Oh, I should also let you know that Bill called and said he'd be in at 7 instead of 5. He has to pick up his brother from the airport. So, I guess you'll be there for a while. I hope you've got a good book or something. Amanda. What? You jerk! You think you can do this to me? When I get out of here, I'm going to get you. Me. Wow, okay, yeah, have fun with that. Have a good one. I'll leave my name tag and shirt on the front desk. Wait! Bye. Wait! Me. Don't worry, I'll lock up on my way out and I'll put up a sign so people will know we're closed. OP, wait, I didn't mean it. Come back. I walked up front, wrote out a sign that we're closed until 7 p.m. due to unforeseen circumstances. The very last thing I heard from Amanda before I opened the doors was, "But I have to go to the bathroom." Still snickering to myself, I locked the door and drove the 45 minutes out to Ken's house to let him know the shop was closed. Could I have gone the 5 minutes to my house and called? Sure I could. Did I? Nope. Ken seemed a bit surprised to see me there. Ken, I thought you were working today. Me. Oh, I was, but Amanda fired me. Ken, she's not allowed to do that. All hiring and firing goes through me. She knows that. Don't worry, I'll call her. I think maybe it's time to talk to my son about her. I can't keep her on with her acting like this. Me. I don't think she'll be able to answer the phone. Ken gave me a long, sharp look as I tried very hard not to smile. Then I gave up entirely and just smiled broadly back at him. Ken. OP? Me. Yes? What did you do? Me. I didn't do anything. I only followed her orders. Ken leaned down to me eye to eye. What happened? I gave him the full tale from her telling me that I couldn't use the phone under any circumstances to her telling me that I wasn't allowed to leave the sales floor when I was on the clock. Then I told him about her being stuck in the elevator. You didn't tell her the elevator was broken? I didn't even realize it had power. Ken just stood there looking at me gobsmacked and then started laughing. I should really go let her out. He paused for a minute and looked down at his dirty hands and clothes, then up at me. But I really shouldn't leave these flowers half planted, and then I should probably take a shower. I don't want to make that drive covered in dirt. Me. Oh, of course not. You've got a really nice car, and it would be a lot of work to get that mulch dirt out of your seats and carpet. Do you need some help with the planting? Ken nodded back at me and gave another chuckle. It took probably another hour to finish planting the flowers. Ken told me I'd be paid for the day and sent me home with assurances that I did indeed still have a job and that he would deal with Amanda. I fully enjoyed the rest of my half-day off. I did hear from Bill that when he got there, the elevator repair guy had just arrived and that Amanda ended up spending about 5 hours stuck in the elevator. After that day, I only saw her one more time. She glared daggers at me as I waved happily to her as she carried a bag of her things out to her car. Whenever I think about it, I still get a little smile on my face. Besides, I only did what she told me to. Pulled out an Uno reverse card. This happened earlier this week. Told the story to some friends at a bonfire last night, and they all agreed I should share it here. Quick background info. I work at a company that installs custom closets. Our uniform includes a blue button-up Carhartt shirt with the company logo on it. I think some of you may already be picking up on where this is going. So I'm driving home from work after a very long and tedious day, completely covered in sawdust, when I get a call from my lovely wife. She had put in a pickup order at the local Walmart, but they didn't give her our almond milk. She asked if I'd be willing to stop and let them know they shorted us and grab it. While I'm not particularly enthusiastic to add a stop on my way home, I tell her okay. I get there and head on over to the customer service desk and explain the situation. The lady working there is very sweet and tells me she'll have somebody from the pickup department swing over and take care of me. She gestures towards a nearby bench and informs me that I can have a seat while I wait. I gladly did so and promptly pulled out my phone and attempt to disassociate for a few minutes. A few minutes, maybe 5 at most, go by and a line forms up. I guess the lady at the desk stepped away for a moment. I start to hear grumbling about lazy employees and how nobody has any work ethic anymore. Wish I could be more specific on their exact phrasing, but I was trying very hard not to pay attention to anything going on around me at this point. After a few more moments, I hear a very aggressive clearing of a throat, followed by a very annoyed sounding, "Excuse me, sir. I've been waiting for help for over 10 minutes. I look up to see a woman holding an armful of clothing glaring at me. She will henceforth be referred to as Glaring Woman. Me. Well, I find that unlikely, as I haven't even been here for 10 minutes, and I got here before you. Karen. Well, maybe this would go faster if you weren't messing around on your phone. At this point, I've now connected the dots, and I realize she thinks I work here. I'm about to utter the classic words, "I don't work here," when an idea hits me. Me. You're right. Sorry for holding you up. I pull up the Walmart app on my phone and show her the almond milk. My wife and I didn't get the almond milk we ordered. We were supposed to get 2 cartons. Why are you showing me your phone? So you can grab me my almond milk. Is that not why you're here? Ew, no, I don't work here. Cute malicious grin. Well, neither do I. How about we stop bothering each other now? She looked me up and down, and I could see realization dawn on her face. She quietly walked back to the line, and I sat back down on my bench. Eventually, the desk lady came back and got the line moving, and an employee from pickup came and got me my almond milk. And that's the story. At least she didn't try to get me fired. Am I the jerk for stopping my parents from paying for my sister's IVF and telling her she can't afford to have a kid? I'm 23, male. My sister is 28, female. She's married to her husband, who's 30, for the past 6 years. My sister has been trying to have a baby for about 3 years now without success. 18 months ago, she and her husband came to my parents and asked if we'd finance an IVF treatment. My parents have some savings separate from retirement and agreed to pay for it, and I even pitched in a few $100s to show my support, even though I didn't have a lot of savings, having just started work after graduation. Unfortunately, the IVF failed. Yesterday, my sister and brother-in-law came over again for dinner. Afterwards, my sister said she wanted to try another round of IVF and asked my parents if they would pay for it again. I could tell my parents looked hesitant, but they agreed because my sister was crying. At this point, I stood up and said it's not right for her to ask again for our parents' money for something that didn't work before and may not work again. We argued a bit, and I admit that things got heated and we had a big fight. She yelled at me that it was none of my business. I told her if she can't pay for the IVF, then she needs to accept that she can't afford a kid. She told me to get out, but I refused. My parents were trying to calm us down. My mom started telling me that it's not my money, to which I replied that it's basically a gift to one kid and not the other, and that it was only fair that I be given a similar amount of money as to what they would spend on my sister. My sister started complaining that it's not a gift, it's a treatment for a medical condition, and if I'd expect payment if she had cancer and my parents paid for chemo. I told her not being able to have a kid poses no threat to her life the way that cancer would, and it's a completely disingenuous comparison. My dad finally stood up and yelled at both of us to shut up and sit down. Then he told my sister that they already paid for one, and I had a point that contributing to pay for it would be unfair. He said he's very sorry for what she's going through, but they need to accept things how they are. My sister started crying again, and her husband, who had been quiet and looking uncomfortable the whole time, took her and left. Today, my sister sent me some texts calling me a jerk for sticking my nose in her business and keeping her from having a baby. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The way you said it was harsh, bordering on jerk territory. But your parents were about to just hand over tens of thousands of dollars that they probably need for their retirement years because your sister was crying. Your sister is only 28. There's time for her and her husband to save the money to have IVF again in a few years, or they can ask other family or friends to chip in. But you did the right thing to help safeguard your parents' retirement needs. Yes, why don't they hit up hubby's family? And since OP chipped in the first round, I feel it is his business. He contributed to essentially a business transaction that failed. He hasn't even asked his sister for that money back. I get they want a kid of their own. She wants the whole pregnancy experience, but maybe they should consider adopting. A. They did, and his parents said no. Or B, he knows they'd never say yes, so OP's parents are an easier target. It sounds like OP's dad wasn't thrilled about paying again, but maybe didn't want to say no in the moment when faced by a crying daughter and potentially upset wife. I'd be surprised if he didn't pull the plug further down the line anyway. But OP needs to work on his delivery. The way he said it was like a jerk. No, they shouldn't consider adoption. Adoption isn't a magic get out of infertility free card. Adopted kids aren't consolation prizes for the infertile. Adoption is painful and messy and expensive, and people going that route need to be in it 100%. Just go adopt needs to stop. You're the jerk. It's not your money and it's not your business. You're acting entitled by not only inserting yourself into your parents' decision, but then acting as though they owe you whatever they give her. Parents don't provide kids equally the exact same things in life. They provide them what they each need if possible. In your defense, you are only 23. Your brain is not fully formed and it shows. Your parents should be telling you to sit down and mind your own business, and if you're lucky, not decreasing the amount you may one day inherit by the amount you're pitching a fit about it. If your parents can afford it, it's their decision and theirs alone. If they chose to wait for a while and let your sister try other ways, it's up to them. You don't explain their full situation, your sister and her husband. But either way, it's still not your decision to make. I agree, you're the jerk. This was a discussion between sister and parents, and the parents' decision alone. As my parents have always taught me, just ask. The worst they can do is say no. OP. If you felt that your parents were giving money out of guilt rather than actually wanting to, would you stay out of it? I don't want the money, but making the point about it being unfair let my dad decline the guilt trip. If they actually want to give the money, they can. I don't control their finances. Except you didn't even talk to your parents to see if they were doing it out of guilt. You decided they were doing it out of guilt based off a look and decided your sister was guilt tripping simply because she was crying. Your dad took it back after you gave him a guilt trip about getting a gift of equal value. Your sister crying about an emotional subject isn't a guilt trip. You complaining you should get an equal gift is a guilt trip. You're the jerk. Your dad and mom are right. This isn't your money. It was not your business to butt in and try to answer for your parents. Your sister was asking them for their money. She wasn't asking you for your money. You completely butted in where it wasn't your place, and impossibly one of the rudest, most confrontational ways possible. If you thought your parents were being taken advantage of, there were much more tactful ways to bring it up. This is a major decision. Maybe you should think about it more. Sis, you should let them talk about this in private. IVF could fail again. Are you sure it's a good decision? Etc. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for what he said or not? Please let us know. What do your parents even need those retirement funds for? Just let her have all of it. While they're at it, why not buy her a house too? And maybe a Tesla. Car thief gets caught in the act, leaves her phone with tons of evidence. This is something that happened in my hometown. A week or two ago, someone, let's call him Joe, caught someone else, the thief, breaking into his car. Thief got so startled that when they took off, they left their belongings there, including their phone, which had no security on it. Well, because everything goes through your phone now, Joe was able to take over the thief's Facebook account and put them on blast. Joe has been posting all the screenshots of messages he finds incriminating thief in a series of crimes. Joe's posts have helped link the thief to storage unit break-ins, car thefts, catalytic converter theft, home break-ins, shoplifting, and worse. Videos of her breaking into storage units, messages about selling stolen property. There's even screenshots of search history including how to hotwire a car, easiest car to steal, etc. Edit. Joe tried to give the phone with evidence to the police, but they declined, so he took it upon himself to do their work for them. Security thinks I am his relief. I work for a pretty large security company that has a contract with the absolute biggest employer in the city. This is where I work for. I also live in a security-protected apartment complex. Plot twist, it is protected by the same company I work for. My apartment was right next to the clubhouse. This is where security parked. Some background information. The company as a whole uses tan shirts for supervisors and white shirts for the officers, but the specific contract for this employer dictated that supervisors wore white shirts and officers wore blue. I am a supervisor. To top it off, my apartment complex is only a 5-minute drive, 15-minute walk from where I work. On this particular day, I had just gotten off at 8 a.m. from a 12-hour shift and had exactly 8 hours before I had to be back at work for another 12-hour shift. I also had to deal with an employee of the company I protect trying to fistfight and punching me in the face just 20 minutes before my shift ended. So I was already on edge. I pulled my car up to the front of my apartment and, being the friendly introvert I am, waved to the security guard who was looking directly at me, and then went towards my front door. As I was moving through the big keyring to get my key out, my shoulder is grabbed and I'm violently turned around. Still haven't been able to settle down from the incident at work. I put the guy who grabbed me over the railing and on his head. He wasn't injured or anything. It took him a minute to get up though, as he went a full 180 in under a second. When I realized it was the security guard of the complex, I walked over and tried to help him up. He fired off at me. "You aren't allowed in the residence apartments. I'll have you fired for this." Now, I've seen this guy a few times when I went to check the mail, but he seemed not to recognize me. I can fully understand. I see 500 people walk in and out where I work, and I've never bothered learning names unless, 1, I work with you every day, 2, you are a big shot who actually can fire me that instant, and 3, you cause trouble frequently. Needless to say, I can understand the lack of recognition. I don't work here. I live here. "BS!" he immediately responded once he got back on his feet. "I know our uniform. You're the new guy that's supposed to be relieving me." He grabbed my arm and tried to show me where the car was. "Remove your hand from my arm or I will remove it from yours." I was already done and looking at most at 6 hours of sleep, still in fight mode. I would have apologized later for this line, but spoilers. He's already on the radio calling in his supervisor to come deal with me. An hour later, the property manager is coming in to open the clubhouse. She stops, smiles, and waves and comes over. "Hi, didn't think you would be out at this time." The property manager and I were pretty cool with each other. I'm skilled enough to make most repairs myself and am never late with rent, and once I ran out to the pool to perform CPR for a resident. She also knew from the inspection yesterday that I was going to be pulling a messed up 12 on, 8 off, 12 on couple days. Before I can explain anything, the other guard butted in. "He was trying to go into a resident's apartment. I got my supervisor on the way. He won't be doing it again here." Ladies and gentlemen, I turned him upside down. The property manager, a nice sweet older lady, was about to turn this idiot inside out. Before she could say anything, the officer supervisor drove up and asked what was going on. She cut the officer off and told him, "This fool is holding one of our residents hostage outside his apartment. I want him out of this complex 5 minutes ago, and he will not be coming back here ever." The supervisor just gave the officer a dismissive thumb back motion. He had no leeway to argue. The contractee can always tell who's not allowed to go onto the site, even our own employees. Yeah, he was fired on the spot. And this is not the end, folks. Remember how I said we worked for the same company? The corporate big shots decided to rehire him and send him to the largest employer they guard and give him a second shot. He arrived for an interview at my facility where I had hiring power. The interview went all of 3 questions. 1. Are you going to keep anyone out that is supposed to be in here? 2. Are you going to ask for credentials for anyone you don't know trying to enter? 3. Are you going to grab anyone? He said no, and I accepted him to the facility. He's been working here a year now and is one of my best access control officers on site, even to the point someone claimed he let someone in that wasn't authorized, and I laughed instantly. My mom is demanding I love my stepsister even though she's a brat. My mom married her husband when I was 12. He had a 2-year-old daughter at the time who had no mom, so my mom fell madly for her as well and considers this her kid too. I never had anything against her back then, but I won't pretend I started caring about her all that much either, or that I saw her as my sister. My mom and her husband spoil her rotten and have allowed her to become a very demanding kid. She will tell people what to do and will scream if you don't follow what she wants. This started when she was like 4 and has gotten worse in the last 4 years. She will demand someone play tea parties with her, and if they say no, screams at the top of her lungs at you. She tells you to put something on TV, and if you don't, same response with the screaming. Wants a piggyback ride and is told no, screaming also loud. At the park and wants to be the only one on the slide, screams. She's had several notes sent home from school with complaints about this. My mom and her husband even got called in at the end of this past school year to talk about how they feel she needs to mature and have this behavior nipped in the bud. I find her so annoying that I do my best to avoid her now, which is easier since I moved out. Not too long ago, my mom was asking if I would be coming home on weekends when my training starts, and I told her I probably wouldn't. She asked why, and I said because I was busy. She suggested they could come here and stay with me for a weekend. I told her not to. She asked me why. I told her I didn't want her stepdaughter in my apartment. She told me she's my little sister and misses me, and I should spend some time with her. I said nah and pointed out her behavior. She told me how wrong it was to feel that way about her, and I said I'm not the only one, and I won't be. I told her the difference is she and her husband love her, but not everyone will, and then her behavior will just keep getting doors shut in her face. As it is, she had several birthday party invites rescinded from January to May this year. My mom told me saying I don't love her is awful and that I've known her for most of her life, and she has adored me since day one. She said she was ashamed of how cold I could be to the kid. I don't think she really gets it, but maybe she's right. Am I the jerk? You are not the jerk. Your mom and stepdad are being really short-sighted. No one is going to want to be around your stepsister, and it's all their fault. Yup, stepsister's behavior is obviously horrible, but OP's mom and stepdad are the real jerks here. Not the jerk. I don't understand how people think others are horrible for genuinely not wanting to be around poorly behaved kids, or kids at all. They're raising a brat, plain and simple. If my math's right and I didn't miss something, she should be 8. By now, she should be able to accept no as an answer. If it continues, she's going to have a heck of a time in the next few years. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for the way they said this or not? Please let us know. Not at all. No one likes screaming brats. Hit, run, return, refund. I work at a fast food joint. For context, our store has 2 windows, one for collecting and the other is to hand out food. They also have 2 bright yellow poles on either side, so it's not hard to miss. At least I didn't think so. The past week or so, I've had an increase on people driving past this window into the food one. This causes issues, especially in rushes, but yesterday it caused an issue I had yet to experience. I wasn't working drive-thru, but I had a clear line of sight of the second window. I was slicing tomatoes when I hear a loud honk. I immediately drop my tomatoes and look at the window. Normally, if a customer honks, they're mad. Someone forgot something or their food was made wrong. As the manager, I have to go play peacekeeper. I make eye contact with the woman sitting there who has a deer in the headlights look and she peels away. Definitely confused. Someone doesn't honk for no reason, and I know my crew hadn't talked to her since I'd been the closest staff member anyway. I dip into the front. I'm trying to find someone to tell me what happened. All 3 of my front people are crowded around the first window. I look at them and say, what happened with that lady? As if they were waiting to present to me this glorious scene, they all immediately scuttle behind me. A hilarious sight as I'm the smallest person on staff. I don't need an explanation at this point. A truck sat in my window. The front was an absolute mess. I honestly wouldn't have trusted it to turn on myself. My crew were whispering behind me about how mad the driver was going to be. He was getting out and I was being pushed towards him. I brace myself. He takes a second to look at it, then looks at me and chuckles. That was crazy. I relax a little bit and smile. Did she back into you? Yeah, I guess she missed the window and she didn't see me. This caused both of us to laugh. His truck is huge. It was a pickup, but lifted and definitely a bit bulkier than what I normally see. I'm not a car person, so that's the best description you'll get. Its engine was also so loud, he actually had to turn it off before he even stepped out so we could hear him talk. She was also in a little bug. There's no way she could have missed him. At this point, I switch back into manager mode. I ask him if he'd like us to speak with his insurance company. Would he like me to keep his info in case she comes back later? At least let me give you a discount. He said no to everything I offered. Honestly, I can't even tell where she hit me. This thing's had so many accidents, I only use it for work. Good thing I'm on my break. That's a relief to hear. Though he insisted on paying for all his food, I accidentally forgot his fries were smalls. Uh-oh, made that a large and they're ready in the bag. For health reasons, I can't take them back out. You enjoy. I wish this is where the story ended. Next day, I'm in the office doing manager stuff when there's a knock on my door. I look up. I've worked with my crew long enough to know when someone just met a Karen. OP, this lady up at my window. I'm already up and walking to the front. I didn't hear what the lady's issue was, but I already know it's gonna be something stupid and annoying. I look out the window and think, That woman looks familiar. Wait, I recognize that blue bug. Uh-oh. I open the window. Hey, what seems to be the issue here? I came through here yesterday. Okay. I ordered, but I never got my food. I want it now. That's strange. Do you have a receipt? No, but I paid. Side note, she definitely didn't pay. Only managers can delete orders, which I had to do when she drove away. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't help you without a receipt. But I already ordered my food yesterday, and I paid. I want it now. Did I mention I'd been here for about 8 hours straight at this point? The nice professional facade was starting to crack. Ma'am, if what you're saying is true, you would have gotten your food yesterday. Well, I didn't. Either give me my food or refund. I can't do that, ma'am. If you don't give me my food right now, I'll call your corporate office and have you fired. Oh no, how scary. I'm the only person they've found who's willing to get up early enough to open their store, so these threats don't even bother me. They do make me lose all respect for the customer though. I take a breath and put on my best grin. I look her in the eyes and say, please do. I'd love a reason to show them our security footage from yesterday. We had an accident happen and the guy wouldn't let me call the cops, but if corporate saw, they'd have no choice. I just feel so terrible that happened. Her face whitened. I continued to grin. She started to sputter and suddenly I became concerned, maintaining eye contact the whole time. Now that I mention it, the other vehicle was a blue buggy just like yours. Oh, I hope the cops don't get confused and think it was you. That would be terrible. I kept the look on my face and we stared at each other in silence until she drove away. Am I the jerk for blowing up on my fiancé after he upset my daughter? My fiancé, male 37, and I, female 35, are getting married in September and everything has been going perfect until now. My daughter, who's 16, and yes, I know I had her young, has recently found an obsession in paper origami. She started with making dollar hearts and moved on to making full-on beautiful lotus flowers and paper butterflies and asked if she could help us with the table decorations by putting paper butterflies on them with our wedding colors. I love my daughter and want to support her hobbies any way I can, so I said she can and even bought her the paper she needed with the colors. The issues lie with what happened today, and even typing this still has me feeling a little angry. My fiancé, with the addition of my daughter and I, went to check the venue and stopped at a family friend's house who's making our table decorations. My daughter expressed how she couldn't wait to put her paper butterflies on the table for the guests to enjoy. Our friend thought it was such an adorable idea, but I could tell my fiancé made a face about it. When we came back home, he expressed his concerns about what my daughter said and said that it seemed childish and that he wouldn't have it at his wedding. I reminded him that it's our wedding and that I won't exclude my daughter's wishes after I already bought her the materials. We argued for a bit more, but I had to go to my sister's to help her move. But when I came home today, my daughter came crying to me, telling me she's sorry that she's ruining my wedding with her ideas and said she'll pay me back for the paper. I asked her what she meant, and she said that my fiancé told her I was only including her idea and wasn't going to really go with it. I was enraged, and when he came back home, I blew up on him and called him a jerk for what he told my daughter. He yelled back, saying that we should have found a compromise, and just making this idea without consulting him first was terrible. I do agree I should have consulted him first, but he didn't express any discomfort with the idea, and going behind my back to tell my daughter lies isn't a way to get back to me that he felt away. I feel conflicted and not sure what to do. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and run. First, I find it really upsetting that your fiancé would have any problem with this. If I were marrying into a family with a 16-year-old daughter, I would be so honored that she wanted to participate in beautifying my wedding. I would be exploding with joy. Sometimes, through no fault of anyone's, step-parents and step-kids never form any kind of loving bond. To be so enthusiastically welcomed into a family by my fiancé's daughter, I can't even properly put into words how much that would mean to me. I'm getting teary-eyed at the hypothetical. It feels to me like this can't be the reaction of a man who is happy to be taking on any kind of fatherly role. Like he'll be counting down the days until she goes to college. Second, his course of action clearly displays he will cause harm to her in order to manipulate your compliance. This is the reddest of flags. This isn't how healthy partnerships function in disagreements. Much to the contrary, it's textbook mistreatment and blackmail. The narcissism to sacrifice your daughter's emotional well-being over table settings is staggering. To get this way, he lied to your daughter. He told her that you had negative thoughts and feelings, but you did not. He told her that you lied to her because you could not tell her the truth, but you did not. And he made it appear that you complained to him about her behind her back, but you did not. He breached your trust and hers and caused her to doubt her relationship with you. What other harm might he do? And do not let your daughter think a partner can behave like this with no consequences. Yes, for this, I'd end the relationship. My kids would always be more important than relationships with other people. OP, he hurt her and he lied so that she would think you were the one who had a problem. Please imagine if your kid had not felt comfortable with you and had kept this to herself. What would that have done to your relationship with your daughter? Nothing good. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know. Bruh, are there really people who don't like origami? Let all the clients have the run of the place? Fine. Edit for those of you who are confused. I am co-owner, not the entire owner. I can make certain decisions and change certain things. However, it is still possible for the corporate co-owners and other independent owners, like myself, to potentially undercut the decisions of others. Keep that in mind, please, before you claim I stood by and let people destroy my business. I co-own. Basically, I work for and partially own a media company. We do everything from video and film editing, audio repair and forensics, to music production and engineering. I mostly lead the music production and engineering department, and once in a while, the show, film, cinema, movie, streaming, audio engineering aspects. We of course have other owners and a board of other dependent leaders along with consultants and such. The consultants and other purely business-minded and tasked associates are for the majority absolutely useless and totally disconnect from the actual day-to-day work of the company, and often come up with terrible ideas that seem great in concept purely to them, and sometimes will attempt to force us to at least try them out. As this is ongoing, I'll share how it's been this far. In not a lot, but a few client reviews and follow-up calls from our also wonderful marketing and sales associates, some clients claimed that the environment and mood was too uptight, and the staff was too focused on productivity and didn't let us chill or relax. Being a business that is thankfully heavily booked, and with our staff always giving their all every day, of course our daily focus is first of all, safety and comfort of the staff first, and then clients, since most of the staff, including myself, are women, and we get all walk of life as clients. As a second, working to ensure the absolute highest quality of production and professional atmosphere that uses the clients and our time as best as possible, which to the sales and marketing and consultant staff must mean we are doing everything absolutely incorrectly and everything must change, and we still need to maintain our productivity and profit though. So they, sales, marketing, corporate heads, etc., not me or other department leaders, effectively told us about 2 weeks ago that we should try being a lot more lenient with clients. Not just time-wise, but allowing them to eat and drink in control rooms and live rooms, even though we have a full lunchroom, cafeteria thing with tons of food and drinks available at all times. And of course, everyone is allowed water in the control and live rooms, along with also effectively telling us that we can only ask people to not smoke in the buildings and on premises. Overall, it went as well as I thought it would. We had 3 or 4 client sessions. One went very well, and they were extremely professional, so there wasn't a single issue with time management and productivity, and the control room was clean and tidy for them coming in and as they left. 2 other clients also were generally respectful of the facilities, however, did leave the control rooms a mess with food wrappers and bottles everywhere. We had to pay our cleaning crew for more hours and more intensive work, which was a surprisingly high monetary and time cost. However, it was the last client we had under the new policy that was an absolute terror. They smoked heavily in the control room. They were drinking, running and jumping around as they were inebriated in the facilities, and damaged some treatments and lighting on the ceiling. All stuff that their deposit and incidentals on their credit cards could cover, right? Sure. The worst was yet to come, though. On the last night of their session, after we had to factor in more cleaning time and basically 2 techs to fix everything they messed up with at their own leisure, since we weren't allowed to stop them from messing with the patch bays and things in general, they smashed and spilled an entire bottle of something sugary on the mixing console, a recently restored SSL 6KG+. We are talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Effectively, they destroyed the console since the liquid caused arcing and burnt out the majority of the power supply and ruined about half the channels irreparably. That credit card they put down for incidentals? Yeah, Turns out the $12,000 limit on it wasn't going to cover the tens of thousands of dollars in damage to the mixing console in the room. Of course, client disappears without paying or coming up with a payment plan, and they did not get their final products, of course. So now we have to track them down for claims while the desk and room is currently under repair. We have had wild clients before. However, our policy of being intolerant of clients messing around and potentially hurting staff, equipment, or themselves has prevented any incidents, and even some of the most wild clients we have had have understood it is a professional environment and has been extremely professional while working with us. Yes, I probably could have shut down the policy changes immediately since I completely foresaw the majority of the issues. However, I maliciously complied, as did my staff, to prove in the immediacy and the future that the marketing and sales and corporate heads should have zero say on our methodology and policy unless it truly would benefit our staff and clients. The ongoing part is now there is going to be a several-day review of the policy change so they can waste time attempting to figure out why it didn't work and how we lost time and money on it. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my last name? My mother passed before I was 10. My uncle, mother's elder brother, took me in and raised me because my father by then had already started a new life and a new family. My uncle treated me very well, though I'm not sure if my aunt feels the same about me as he did. My uncle and aunt had an only son who's around my age, and what he had, I had it too. For example, if my uncle got cousin a laptop, he would get me one too, and then they would be the same worth. My uncle even got me a car for my 18th birthday. My cousin also treated me just like his own brother. Needless to say, I'm very grateful to have them in my life. Everything I have and that I am is owed to them. However, my relationship with my uncle has hit a slight snag recently. In my culture, it's usually the parents who will help with purchasing a home for their sons when they get married. The reason is because people in my culture tend to marry young. Most of the time, we would not have worked long enough to save up enough for even the down payment. For a man not to have a marital home is considered a disadvantage, and the woman's family may not accept the proposed union. So a man having a marital home is very important. In my case, because my mother has passed and my father is an absent parent, my uncle and aunt are my de facto parents. Indeed, my uncle said he would buy me a marital home. However, he has set a condition for that. I have to change my last name to his. Last names are a big deal in my culture, so this is not something that is taken lightly. My uncle said since he's been like a father to me, rather than my own father, and also as a remembrance to my mother, I should change my last name to his, which is also my mother's. So basically, no change in last name equals no marital home. I expressed to him that this is an unfair demand because, like I said, last names are a huge deal in my culture, and a change could trigger uncomfortable questions from people. But my uncle insisted that if I refused to change my last name, I would have to buy the marital home on my own, which is impossible because I'm a fresh grad and it could take me years to even save up for the down payment. This could seriously set me back in terms of a romantic relationship and future marriage. Because of our disagreement, things between my uncle and I have become awkward. So far, my aunt and cousin have not said anything to me, but a group of close friends whom I have confided in told me I'm the jerk. I'm surprised by their reaction because other than this, I had never gone against my uncle. I'm also very thankful to my uncle and what he has done for me, and I would gladly take up the responsibility alongside my cousin to take care of him in his old age. It's just that I really don't think I should be forced into making a fundamental identity change and be punished for not doing it. Am I the jerk? So, do I understand correctly that you refuse to change your last name to your uncle's last name, which is also your mother's last name, who took care of you since you were 10 and treated you like his own son just because you're afraid of uncomfortable questions from random people? Yeah, sounds like you're the jerk. Yeah, I was expecting OP to say that it was because he didn't want to lose his mother's name, but it is the same. I appreciate that it might raise questions, but I don't think they would be terribly hard to answer. You're the jerk. I changed to my mother's name to honor her since I've never seen nor had a relationship with my father. How hard is that? And OP, you should apologize for not being okay with this sooner and tell him it's an honor to have his last name the way he stepped up for you, even if it was uncomfortable at times. You're the jerk. Change your name and be done with it. At this point, he's your dad. Seeing as your culture sets a big deal on this is the best way to honor your family. You're the jerk. He's done everything for you out of kindness, but he's not obligated to do everything for you. He's not your actual father, so he's not duty-bound to help you with your house. If you think he is duty-bound, then he is your father, and you should understand why he wants you to share his name. You can't have it both ways. Not the jerk. Nothing like some good old Reddit hypocrisy. Anytime OP is a girl who doesn't want to change her last name, all of you cheer her on and say, "No way, don't do it, red flags, you shouldn't change your name for anyone." Now that OP is a man who's being pressured into changing his last name, oh, how that tone has changed. Just do it. You're selfish for not wanting to change your name. Stop being a baby. The hypocrisy would be humorous if it wasn't such a sad reflection of how broken you all are and how your minds have been brainwashed. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not wanting to change his last name or not? Please let us know. I couldn't stand changing my last name to Redder, but I did what I had to do so I get everything when he croaks. What? Nothing. Entitled host tried to keep me from eating at a nice restaurant. So my wife, Zena, and I made reservations for a very nice restaurant that opened up in January. However, due to it being posh, new, and apparently had excellent food, me, wifey, and myself had to wait until last week in order to get a spot there. So we got a babysitter and a nurse for my granny-in-law and got all dolled up to go. We took my wife's car, and since it was brand new, she didn't want anyone but herself to drive it. So she dropped me off at the door and went to park the car. Now, it's important to note that we did call earlier and confirm the reservation, so the host was there. Now, I'm well dressed up. A nice suit, nice haircut, clean shaven, and nice shoes, looking like a man of culture, and not as the tradesman I normally am. At this point, I should mention that I am not fully white. I'm Irish-American on my dad's side, but more importantly, I'm also half Cuban that comes from my mom's side. While I do mostly look like my father, I have darker skin, brown eyes, and black hair like my mother's side of the family. From the way the host looked at me, I just knew this was going to be a problem. He had the face of a man that was witnessing a dog going to the bathroom on the carpet and scrunched his nose like he was smelling it. I was thinking I should wait for my wife since the reservation was under both of our names, but he spoke first. Entitled host. Can I help you? His tone clearly stated that he didn't even want to look at me. Me, while trying to pretend not to notice. Yes, there's a reservation under Phil and Zena, last names. Entitled host looked at the list. He was clearly not really reading it. No, I don't see your names here. Now, I experienced this sort of crap my entire life, so I try to remain as polite and professional as possible. Me, check again. My wife called and confirmed the reservation. He checks again, shaking his head. No, there's no one here under that name. Maybe you and your wife are at the wrong restaurant? Yeah, I know arguing with this guy was going to get me nowhere, so I just wished him a good evening, turned around, and walked right outside. Zena was just about to enter the building as I was coming out. Zena, what's the matter? So I explained about this jerk inside, and she sighed. Zena, what do you want to do? Me, well, we got the reservation and a night to ourselves. I want to try the food here, and I refuse to let that jerk get in the way of that. So you go in, confirm the reservation, and then I'll come in. I hate to say it, but it's a tactic we had to use in the past in order to get into restaurants. Edit, I should mention that my wife is white, hence why we did this. Most cases, it's just that host will give us the problems. If it's the service as a whole, we would leave and leave a poor review. Still, it's fun in a way. It's still fun to see my wifey go in, get us our table, and then me walking in to sit with her. The host looked like he had swallowed something really sour as I sat down across from my wife. I half expected him to say something, but he just turned his head away. The service was lovely, the waiter we had was polite and quick, and the food was wonderful. But every so often, the entitled host would look over at us and just frown. I saw him turn away 2 more couples that weren't up to his standards. Well, our evening was still wonderful. Despite the nasty looks we got, we still enjoyed our food. Of course, my wife called the owners and let them know what the host did and tried to do to us. She let the owners know that she will not tolerate such intolerance from a man that was turning away business. She added that such a host would eventually cause the restaurant to get a terrible reputation, and they would get into a lot of trouble over it. Well, 1 week later, I was talking to some neighbors and found out that the entitled host was no longer working there. Rumor has it that he turned away over 200 customers. Not sure if it was true or not, and he got fired over this. They hired someone that was much nicer, though Zena and I wouldn't find out until November when we go back again. Still, it's not the first time nor the last time that this will happen to me. Yet, it's still nice to see jerks like that getting what they deserve. Never be afraid to whip out your phone and record someone who's treating you like that. No better way than exposing trash people through viral videos. My sister's family wants to move in because I bought a huge house. I, male 31, am single and child-free. For the past few years, I've been house hunting, and during 2020 was offered to buy my great-grandmother's farmhouse. It's about an hour away, almost 80 years old, needs a lot of TLC, and comes with about 15 acres. Originally, I declined, but my grandma offered it as a steal to keep it in the family. The price was worth the land alone, and I loved the idea of restoring it, so I said yes. The house has 6 bedrooms, which sounds like a lot, but they're actually very small. The plan is to turn 4 rooms into 2 rooms and a bath. 1 room kept as the master, and the 6th room is actually the dining area that will become part of the living area. The one great thing is the kitchen is huge, and it has an outdoor extension like a mud room. I've recently started construction on the rooms and have gotten some odd reactions from my family. My mother believes I should have kept the house as is, and when I pried, she admitted she thought I'd offer to house my sister's family. My sister, female 34, has 3 kids who are 11, 9, and 3, and a deadbeat ex-husband. They divorced after her 3-year-old was born, and my sister moved in with my mom. Our parents are divorced, so Dad is not a part of this. My sister's husband moved back to his family state and only sees the kids a few times a year. The child support is not much because he has a low-paying job. My mom's house is a 3-bedroom. My nieces share a room while my nephew sleeps with his mom. My sister has a job and could rent her own apartment but wants to save up money instead. My cousin's son, male 15, has started staying as well and sleeps on the couch. His family life is not all that great right now. The house is cramped, but my mother refuses to ask her to leave. They have started making passive-aggressive comments about me being single and alone in such a huge house. When I asked my sister, she also admitted that she expected to at least be offered to live with me. I told her it's an hour away from her job and school. Why would she want to? She then said that she would make the drive to work and change the kids' schools. I told her I won't have the space, and now it has become a fight. My sister got my great-grandma involved, and now my grandma told me that I should let them live with me because the house is family property. Now, even my 15-year-old cousin is asking about staying with me. My dad asks to borrow my car, then sells it. This was a long time ago. I hardly have any contact with that part of the family anymore, but I do still talk to my dad once in a while. My dad needed a car for a while, so I loaned him mine. When I went to get the car back, the back end was smashed in. My dad tells me how he was at a red light and the car was rear-ended. Of course, I asked the normal questions about fault and insurance and everything else. He tells me the other guy's insurance company sent him a check for the damages, but it wasn't enough to cover the repairs. A lie. So he didn't have the car repaired. Instead, he spent the money. My dad and I have the same first and last name, but a different middle name, so it's easy to see how he could claim the car was his and have the check written to him. When I told my dad that he should have just let me know about the accident and let me handle the claim, he said, "Why should you get anything? You weren't in an accident. I was." We had an argument about this, but none of my dad's argument was even anywhere close to being valid. He also just wasn't hearing any of what I had to say. I asked my dad to leave the car at his house for a few days and said I would arrange to have it picked up and repaired. A couple of days later, I went to his house, but I didn't see the car, so I thought he wasn't home. When I knocked, he answered. My younger brother was also there, which was surprising because he was supposed to be away at college, which I was helping pay for, but that's another story. I told my dad I was there to pick up the car. He says that was impossible because he sold it. I asked him why he did that, and he says, "You seemed so upset about the damage. I figured you'd just want me to go ahead and sell it, so you didn't have to deal with it anymore." I was making payments on the car and asked my dad how he could have sold it without the title. He told me he just had the guy fill out a lost title form or something like that. I don't even know the details on it. I told him that I thought that was going to be a problem when the guy tries to register the car and finds out that there's a lien on the car. My dad says, "That's the buyer's problem, not mine." When I asked him how much he got for it, he told me he got $3,000. Even with the damage, it was worth closer to $7,000, but definitely no less than $5,000. I asked my dad for the money. He told me he had already spent it. Then he goes into this rant about how many bills he has and how he's even paying for my brother's college. Not true. Plus, my brother was sitting right there. He had dropped out but didn't even tell me, even though he kept cashing the checks that I sent. I had very little contact with my parents after that, and I think I only actually saw them one time since then, which was around the time I got married, but not at the wedding because they refused to go. None of this was all that surprising though. I never should have even loaned the car to my dad in the first place. My Karen wife is kicking out my daughter so she can turn her bedroom into an art studio. Our daughter is turning 18 in October. She's a great kid, always got straight A's, never in any type of trouble, and she's very respectful. My wife recently decided to have a talk with her about adult responsibilities. I had no knowledge of this conversation until my daughter came to me crying because she was scared about living on her own. I was confused at first. Then she told me her mother said she needs to start looking for a job because she'll be expected to get her own place after her birthday. I was appalled because we never discussed throwing her out at 18. When I confronted my wife, she said our daughter wasn't a kid anymore and needed our push to become an adult. I told her I was really baffled that she would exclude me from such a serious decision and conversation. I asked my wife, how does she expect our kid to make it on minimum wage, especially considering the rent is out of control in our area? She then informs me she had planned for us to pay half her rent until she was 20. I asked her why she wanted our kid gone so bad. As the argument intensified, I believe she slipped by saying she needed the space, her bedroom, for her art studio. I couldn't believe it. I told my wife if her hobby was more important than our daughter, she should be the one looking to rent. However, she took that as me saying move out, but that's not how I meant it. I was implying for her to rent more space for her studio and to leave our daughter alone. She didn't believe that's what I actually meant. She then gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. Our daughter, however, was still upset as she processed her mother wanting her to move out. She realized moving into a rental meant she had to leave her 2 cats behind. She's had these cats since she was a kid. That alone devastated her. She told me, I don't want to turn 18. I don't want to celebrate my birthday. I picked the argument back up with my wife at that point. I said, our daughter isn't moving out until she decides on her own terms, because she is more important than you or your hobby. She looked stunned, and maybe in the heat of the moment, I didn't choose my words wisely. I couldn't bear to see our daughter so upset any longer. I don't want her struggling to make ends meet and not being able to follow her dreams. The last thing I want for her is to feel rushed. As far as my wife goes, she's not talking to me at all, and she's been cold towards our daughter. Not the jerk, your wife is. While 18 may very well be the age you become an adult, 18 is not the age where most people are prepared to live on their own. Your wife is absolutely the jerk because she should have had a conversation with you before arbitrarily making an absolutely asinine decision. It may be time to take a good hard look at your marriage. Putting an art studio ahead of your kids' welfare and well-being is ludicrous. Edit. OP, if you have not thought about planning for the unexpected, you should. Please make sure you have a will in place to protect your daughter. Life happens. Additionally, think about some therapy to help deal with any anxiety. Turning 18 should be a happy time for her. Not to mention, you don't stop being a parent when your kid is 18 or 20 or any other age. You should be there for your kid and they'll be there for you. If the daughter is kicked out to make space for an art studio, I doubt she'll feel good coming to her parents for help if she ever needs it. I definitely wouldn't. I was welcome back home when the lockdown started. I'm saving up to be actually independent and will be paying rent after I graduate. I'm currently paying for everything except basic food and shelter, car insurance, clothes, pet care, etc. And I fully expect to be there for my parents as they age too, just like they're here for me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Bruh, it's 2022. I don't think anyone can afford to move out at 18 these days. Am I the jerk for being honest with my son that I'm not proud of him regardless of his career? My wife, Nina, and I became pregnant with our son, Jason, when we were both 20. We will admit it was an unplanned pregnancy, but we loved our son and kept him. We did our best to raise Jason to be kind, respectful, and treat others well, and we thought we succeeded. Jason worked hard to attend an elite university. Jason and his first wife, Sarah, had a daughter, Simone. Unfortunately, Sarah passed in an accident before Simone's 3rd birthday. Jason raised Simone until Simone was 4. At that time, he met his second wife and moved 2 hours away. Simone lives with us now. Jason visits once every 2 months at best. He and his wife would stay for the day, buy Simone a present, then Jason would say it was time to leave. Nina and I suspect he only visits and buys Simone the present because his wife makes him. His wife, Iris, is a lovely lady. She insists that Simone should move in with them or they should move closer to us because she wants to be Simone's stepmom and spend time with her. But Jason shoots the idea down because he says Simone moving in or them moving would hurt his career, and it's best Simone stay with Nina and me. Simone is 11 now, and she adores Jason. She makes drawings and cards for him, constantly bakes treats to send to him. It's devastating for her because her daddy is her hero, and he does not want to spend time with her. Her birthday was in July, and she cried when Jason did not call her to wish her a happy birthday. Iris tried lying to Simone to make her feel better that the phone lines were down and Jason did not forget, but Simone did not believe her. Simone is at summer camp all this week, and Jason invited us to a party to celebrate receiving a promotion. During the party, Jason told me how much more money he makes with this promotion and his job title and asked, "You should be proud of me, old man. With my new job and my elite university." I sighed and told Jason that I honestly have not been proud of him as of late. He has a well-paying job, but he treats his own daughter as if she doesn't matter. Simone loves him so much, and he doesn't even seem to care. Nina came back with the drinks, and Jason told her what I said. Nina told him that she agreed with me, and he does not treat Simone right. Most of the family says that I and Nina were in the wrong to tell Jason I was not proud of him. They said I should know how much that statement hurts at any age because I was never good enough in my own father's eyes. They said that Jason is probably focusing on stabilizing his career and Simone can move in with them after. They also said Jason's own promotional party was not the time or place to call him out, and I could have just congratulated Jason on working hard and saved the drama for another day. I feel what I said needed to be said, but most of the family is disagreeing with Nina and me. Am I the jerk? As many people have asked, Jason does pay child support. He believes because he pays child support that his responsibilities have been met. Jason told us he was attending therapy in the beginning, but we learned later he was being untruthful about it. Simone sees a child psychologist, but she seems to talk to the psychologist more about school and friends rather than Jason. Most of the comments have also suggested that Simone could resemble Sarah and cause too many bad memories for Jason. That could be possible, but Simone also does not resemble Sarah at all. Simone looks like a young version of Nina with lighter skin and slightly thicker hair. The issue seems to be that Jason does not want to be a parent to Simone. You told the well-deserved truth, and if that makes him upset, then he can go sit in syrup. I'm proud of you, not the jerk. He stopped being a real dad when she was 4, now she's 11, so he had 7 years to stabilize his career, and he doesn't even want to go to therapy. I lost someone close to me, and to me, it looks like he chooses to forget that part of his life after his wife passed instead of dealing with it. That's why he's such a bad father. His daughter is a reminder of what could have been and what he lost, so he cuts her off. He's harming himself and her and sets himself up for a lot of family drama. OP, as his parent, needs to give him a solid kick in the pants, so he starts going to therapy. Not the jerk. When you're raising your grandchild, oh boy, do you get to have all the opinions in the world regarding your kid. Yup. As for all those saying how much those words hurt coming from a parent, just wait until your kid wants no more to do with you because you left her behind when she needed you the most. Also, those words are coming from his parents who are actively parenting his kid. The kid who is actively hurting from his actions. The son's ego took a hit. He still all but abandoned his daughter to further his career. I don't care if he hasn't dealt with his grief or compartmentalized, or if his daughter does remind him of his first wife. That's still his kid. This isn't a situation where he could not provide for her. He's abandoning her for his new life. OP, not the jerk. I would have likely said much harsher things to my kids in this situation. Thanks for being good parents to that baby, OP. I'm sorry that you're in that position though. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their son? Please let us know. The stories about the absent parents always make my heart break. Stop doing this to me, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for scaring my boyfriend and his brother by going missing when they repeatedly left my friend and I behind on a hike? I had plans with my boyfriend Jack, his brother Tyler, and my friend Paula to go hiking last weekend. I had suggested an easier, flatter trail for us to hike since Paula isn't as experienced a hiker as the rest of us. I thought the plan was to just hike together and hang out and talk, but on the day of, we started at a normal pace and the guys just kept going faster. Paula was lagging behind, kind of out of breath, and I stuck with her. It irritated me because a huge rule of wilderness safety is to stay with your group because anything can happen when you're out there in the backcountry. They were stopping to wait every mile or so. We never knew where because they didn't say and nobody had cell service. But as soon as we caught up, they'd start going at top speed again, leaving us playing catch-up nonstop. I told Jack that I'd like them to stick with us, and he complained that we were too slow. The trail was too easy. They needed their workout. After the third time they ran off, Paula and I got to this viewpoint before the main peak. So we sat down to take our first breather in hours and vent. She joked that we should stop chasing and let them wonder. I suggested we just hang out at the viewpoint until the guys noticed or found us on the way back down. She pulled out something she had been planning on sharing at the top of the mountain, and we hung out and enjoyed it and ate our lunch. It was an hour and a half before the guys came back. We heard them before we saw them. They were sprinting down the trail, yelling our names. I called out, "Over here!" The guys came running to the viewpoint, and Paula was giggling at my attempt to yell. I got the giggles from her too. The guys confused our giggling for crying since we were both just kinda wheezing with laughter and were asking what happened. I was like, "We're okay. We've just been enjoying ourselves." Tyler got really mad at us, saying they had stopped off a half-mile from the summit to wait for us before making the final push. And after we didn't show up for an hour, they decided to turn back to look for us instead of the summit. And he was furious that we just stopped to do what we had done without telling them. I was like, "I thought we split up. Like, y'all were off doing your own thing all day." And my boyfriend raised his voice at me, telling me that you don't split up a group without communication. At that, Paula and I got the giggles again. Like, no duh. It was just funny how he was saying the same thing I'd been saying all day. For the rest of the hike, the guys were angry with us because we ruined their summit, making them turn back just because we didn't even try to keep up. Am I the jerk for going missing on a hike? Not the jerk. You told Jack and Tyler repeatedly what the issue was. They ignored you and did their own thing. You and Paula finally gave up trying to win a losing game. I hike. You adjust your route to fit the weakest hiker, not the strongest. Duh. The guys could have had their workout on a different day, different hike. Instead, they chose to abandon you and Paula over and over again. You didn't ruin anything, and I don't blame you a bit for taking care of yourselves. Trying to keep up with those two could have ended up with exhaustion or getting lost. Getting rescued isn't always free either. Your boyfriend and his pal foolishly, selfishly, and deservedly ruined their own trip. Not the jerk. I'm an experienced hiker with asthma, and the slowest person sets the pace, aka me. If the guys wanted a workout, they should have said so in the planning stage, not on the trail with a friend who physically can't keep up. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Horrible district manager suggests I seek employment elsewhere after I call her out on her BS. I managed a small franchise-owned beauty salon. It was my first management role I've ever taken on. I built the salon up after a low period. I was well respected by my staff because I was an empathetic listener and understood the needs of my staff. District manager was anything but that. She was originally hired on as a manager of a new location in our district that was set to open a month after her original hire date. She somehow convinced our franchise owners that she'd be a perfect fit for the role of district manager and was promoted quickly. At first, I did not see my district manager all that much. Remember that new location that was opening up? Well, she would tell me that she was over at that location getting things in order to be ready by the opening date. I took her word for it and managed to run my location just fine without her guidance, even though I was new to management myself. After that location was good to go, she would promise me that she would spend a day with me at my location, and when that day would come around, I would get the, "Oh, something came up at another location," text from her. I was starting to get a little suspicious. In the meantime, a new manager was hired on at another location in our district. This woman became my mentor, as she has years of experience in the industry. District manager, as part of her job duties, was supposed to train this new manager on her role. District manager gave this woman the runaround too. "Oh, I'll be here today." And then later a text message of, "Something came up at another location." Little did district manager know that us location managers were talking to one another and quickly realized that this woman is sitting at home while collecting a paycheck. Our franchise owners, too, quickly began to realize what this horrible district manager was doing. However, they were reluctant to fire her because they had no solid evidence of what she was doing. District manager caught on that her job was on the line and really started to throw her weight around. She fired multiple employees at all locations who had no previous write-ups. These particular employees were ones who saw her BS and weren't afraid to stand up for themselves. She started enforcing purposeless tasks onto us managers. Soon enough, turnover was high at each location. Even some long-term employees left after she started to show up more. Now for the malicious compliance. Eventually, I had enough of putting up with her crap, and on a particularly rough day, I called her out on her BS. I went ahead and called the franchisors and told them everything of what she was doing. A few days later, district manager calls me aside and tells me that she suggests that I find another job elsewhere and that she could pull some strings. Well, I did exactly just that, and I found a new job, without her help, of course. I gave my franchisors my notice, and on my very last day, horrible district manager was demoted to my former position and was given a huge pay cut. Dang, that was very reminiscent of my Blockbuster video days. On my 5th year there, they hired the district manager from a local video chain they bought out. Well, he got all his favorite jobs in the local stores and started firing everyone in management. He was often complained about to higher-ups, but it fell on deaf ears. I had never been written up, and I was the assistant store manager at the time. I knew the writing was on the wall, for I saw friends get fired and friends quitting left and right. I opened one day and my drawer counted down wrong by $31 and some odd cents. The counter was one of his managers brought in. I searched and searched, looking around the drawer for it. I knew it had to be a check, as the customer was a regular, and she wrote a check every time she came in. DM fired me the next day for not reporting it to him. The check showed up the next day, lodged in the drawer behind the till, which I checked there, and there was no way to get it behind there. I asked to see the footage from the registers and was denied since I was fired. It was actually a good thing I was fired, for the stress was gone. I had a new job within days. I called loss prevention for Blockbuster to review the tapes and told them my story. They looked at all the firings and turnover and launched an investigation. The DM was fired within a month, and they offered everyone their old jobs back, to which nobody took them up on the offer, for they couldn't back us when we complained about him before. Am I the jerk for being annoyed boyfriend is home on my day off? Title is a bit weird, but let me explain. So my boyfriend and I both work the day shift, so we're both home after 6 p.m. We have our days off set up so that he's off Saturday and Sundays, and I'm off Sundays and Mondays. We each get one day off to ourselves to just be alone and do our own thing, and then one day off together so we can do whatever we want as well. My boyfriend and I have fairly different hobbies. We split doing his and my things together throughout the week. He's really into fitness and working out and always being active. I'm a pretty strong gamer and enjoy special effects and more indoor and less sweaty things. So he stayed up stupid late last night and called into work this morning. 9 out of 10 times I wouldn't care, but it's Monday. It's my only day to myself, and he is constantly bugging me to go work out with him or go on a hike or generally to just be active because he's bored. Again, 9 out of 10 times wouldn't matter to me, and I'd spend a few hours doing whatever he wanted. I need this day to just be quiet and dark and me time. I am 100% on the opposite end of a social person. I just want my one day to be alone, to recuperate for the week. I look forward to this one day the entire week. I'm definitely annoyed and definitely showing it, even though I'm trying not to. I've tried explaining this. I've tried being nice and just telling him I need some me time, and he's just not listening. I pretty much snapped and told him to just leave me alone for a bit, and now he's sulking in the living room. Am I the jerk? This keeps coming up. It's not a one-off. He does call in about one Monday a month, sometimes two. His job allows this as long as they are ahead of schedule. This is why I say 9 out of 10 times I do not care and can usually be alone on these days. We still spend the evening together when he'd usually be home from work. We split our hobbies together as well. I bike, hike, work out 3 to 4 days a week, and he plays games and lets me cover him with makeup. It's not like we don't do things together. Not the jerk. This may not be a popular opinion, but as an introvert with a partner who also works from home full-time, I need my time. You have every right to want your own time without him trying to get you to do stuff with him when he called into work for staying up too late, not even because he was genuinely ill, and it should have been your day to relax and recover. Totally agree. OP is not the jerk. I dated a guy like OP's significant other. Every single moment not working had to be spent attached at the hip. Kids and pets aren't even as clingy as this guy was. It was like I was his sole source of entertainment, and he had no clue how to entertain himself. He had to be in the same room as me at all times. I couldn't even go to the gym on my own without him sulking. No, wasn't meeting anyone there. I just preferred music to trying to hold a conversation while working out. I was very much like OP and very possessive of my one day off to myself. I dealt with the public in my job. It was very mentally exhausting. When I was dating my husband, I asked him once what he would do if I didn't feel like watching a movie and went into a different room to read a book. His answer? He'd leave me to the book and ask if I wanted a refill on my coffee when he finished the movie. The ex would stop the movie and follow me, talking nonstop. Wasn't even following me to read a book himself. I found that I was less possessive of my me time with my husband because I knew I would get it without a sulking toddler theatrics. Even unexpected days off. I now work from home. He'll ask if I have to work that day, and if I do, he leaves me be during the day and entertains himself in the house or putters around in the workshop. Even if I don't, he asks what my plans were for the day over breakfast. Sometimes we do stuff together. Other times, woodshop puttering. Not the jerk. The fact that you asked him to give you space and he won't respect that boundary puts him in the wrong here. OMG, so not the jerk. If my husband disturbed my regularly scheduled introvert in her whole time, I would be a mess too. I call these times my goblin hours. You deserve your goblin hours too. Not the jerk, and I seriously hope you reconsider your relationship with this pain in the backside. I've dated guys like this too, and it's a major red flag when they try to get you to do dumb things like working out, hiking, etc. I'd rather browse Reddit any day than do any of that crap. The reason this is such a red flag is because it shows he has zero respect for you, and he's also totally insecure and unwilling to do things himself and leave you alone. Just be upfront with him. Look, boyfriend, I know you like to waste your time at the gym and being outside, but I want nothing to do with that. I have video games and Reddit. I don't need any of your stupid hobbies. Honestly, it breaks my heart how many loser guys are out there acting like your boyfriend. Really hope you reconsider staying with this monster. You deserve so much better. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I know how you feel. Reddit boy makes me sit in here listening to him read stories all day. I wish I could be somewhere free, not sitting here thinking Cancel all of my services? Okay. I had worked at a telecommunications store for a few years, and as someone who has worked in all sorts of retail, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that telco has the worst customers. But every now and then, you get back at the worst by giving them exactly what they want. We had a local small business owner that had several services with us. Mobile phones, broadband, landlines, the works. He thought that since he had a lot of services, it meant that he could do what he wanted, and the rules did not apply to him. This included getting behind on his bills, complaining about late fees, and absolutely losing it if any services were suspended or restricted. Bear in mind that this only happens after 3 months of overdue bills. If any of these were to happen, he would stomp in, yell, and carry on. Now, in a lot of telco stores, we are just that, stores. We can only do very little when it comes to accounts, especially business accounts. I know it's ridiculous, and if we had the capabilities to do even a few account things in the store, it would have made so many people's lives easier. So we would process a payment and then call up the accounts department to reinstate the services or unrestrict them. One week in particular, he came in, all smiles and shaking hands. He didn't even mind waiting in line for the people in before him to be served. Normally, he would storm up to any consultant, even if they were with customers already being served. I had the luck of being the first one free to serve him. He goes on a long speech about how he's expanding his business and needs several new phones for his new staff he's hiring. I congratulate him and go about the process of getting them activated. We hit a problem early on. Surprise, surprise, He has overdue bills, and the system cannot apply new services to an account that is overdue. This does not mean a bill has been issued. It means it's past its due date. He's livid, saying he needs those services. I get on the phone with the accounts team, and they're willing to waive the default wait time of 3 business days after an account is settled before applying new services. He wasn't having a bar of it, and he said he wants the services and will not be paying a cent today. I inform him that it simply cannot be done. Literally impossible in our system to do it. He starts yelling, saying that he wants to cancel his services and take them elsewhere. I tell him that that's not something we can do in store, and he will need to contact the business accounts department, and they can assist him in moving his services elsewhere. He stomps off, and I thought this would be the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. The very next day, as soon as the store opens, he's in there waiting, red-faced and on the warpath. Being the most senior person during the shift, I deal with him. He yells about being on the phone for ages, being told they advise not to cancel, but to go to another telco and port his services. I'm guessing they didn't explain it too well, as porting means to transfer your services to another provider, keeping the same numbers and having minimal, if any, interruption of service. I explained to him very plainly about what porting meant and that all he needed to do was go to another carrier, sign up his services, give them the numbers he wants brought over, and once they do, we automatically cancel his services on our end once the other provider takes ownership. Simple, right? Wrong. He refused to leave the store until his services were canceled. Time for my malicious compliance. While it wasn't something we could do in-store, we had manual paperwork for lots of things in case of systems going down, compatibility issues, etc. So I go through our internal server to find manual paperwork for accounts and service cancellations and print it off, filling everything out in it ready to go. I request 2 forms of ID, which I need to photocopy, that needs to be attached to the paperwork and get him to sign, informing him in no uncertain terms that if he goes ahead with this, his services will be deactivated within 2 business days and will no longer function. He was fine with this, saying once that happened, he would go elsewhere. He signed, and I went about contacting accounts, faxing the paperwork through, and they processed it all and forwarded me the confirmation for our in-store records. 2 days later, I once again open the store, and he's there waiting, red-faced, and the second he sees me, starts screaming at me that none of his services are working and his company cannot get anything done. No phones, no internet, etc., and that he's going to sue us for lost income and everything else. I go out the back and pull out the paperwork, going over it with him, going over what I told him the other day. He no longer has any services with us. They are now canceled, and he will be unable to sign up for any new services or potentially reactivate any services until his overdue account is paid. I take him to a computer and try to access his account, showing him it no longer exists on our end, and there is literally nothing I can do. He gets up angry but defeated and leaves yelling we have now lost a big customer. Hadn't we already? Am I the jerk for refusing to invite a childhood friend to my birthday? My birthday is in a few weeks. My mom and I went out for Bloody Marys yesterday and ran into someone she used to be friends with. I'll call her Wendy. Wendy has a daughter, Lenny, and when I was a kid, I was forced to be friends with Lenny. Apparently, we're the same age, but she always acted babyish, which kind of annoyed me. When I was like 12-ish, I stopped going when my mom would do stuff with them. Well, she stopped dragging me along. Wendy started going on and on about how she can't believe how her daughter and I are both grown now. My mom said, yeah, my birthday is coming up, and I can't believe how old she is. Wendy asked if I was doing anything for my birthday. I assumed she was just making conversation, so I said meeting with some friends and going to different bars. Then she said, well, Lenny just moved back to town and is looking to meet people. Maybe she can meet with you on your birthday. I just said, I'm not sure where we'll be and when, so she said, then give me your number and I'll give it to Lenny so she can call or text you to see where you are. I said, nah, that's okay. Maybe some other time. Really hoping she'd take a hint. She said, no, this is perfect. Meet up with an old friend and meet new people. Just give me your number. I sort of sighed and said, look, I don't really want her to go. When we were kids and I was forced to hang out with her, I don't consider her a childhood friend. Wendy looked at my mom, and my mom said, you weren't really forced, just encouraged. Wendy said, sorry, I was just trying to help you guys reconnect. Lenny doesn't have many people to hang out with since all her old friends moved on. Have a good birthday. Then walked away. My mom said I was unnecessarily rude and should have just given her my number and not answered her call or text if I didn't want Lenny there. I feel like I was trying to be nice about it and she didn't get it, so I had to be blunt. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You tried to discourage it twice. Wendy kept pushing. Yeah, ideally, Mom would have stepped in and redirected here before it got to the point where your only choice was to be awkward and make it clear that no invite would be forthcoming. Not the jerk. Leading her on and then ghosting her would have just made it worse. It wouldn't have ended things either, I'm sure. The mother would eventually ask about it again, and it would be brought up in conversation, and then you'd have to lie again. There's no use. I think it was brave and smart of you to just be honest. Everyone sucks here. Wendy certainly is a jerk for not taking the extremely obvious hint. Your mom for pushing boundaries then and now, but you were rude by saying, I don't want her to, and we were forced to hang out as kids. While blunt, you could have just been like, no thank you, our plans and group is set. Slight, you're the jerk. I understand that you want a nice birthday celebration with just your friends, but I feel like the mom was kind of pointing more in the direction of, my daughter just moved back and is alone and is having difficulty finding friends again, than trying to demand an invitation to your birthday party from you. You could have easily said, sure, give me her number, and I'll see if I can invite her to a party or something, and maybe help her out. Even if you didn't like her when you were 12, people do change, and meeting up once wouldn't hurt anyone. I moved around a lot, and the first few months and weeks are always lonely and slow. The mom meant well, and even if it's a bit awkward, it's a great way to help someone out who is struggling to adjust after moving back. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I would have been even more brutally honest with her. Sorry, Wendy, but I never liked your daughter and don't want to have anything to do with her. My Karen girlfriend won't allow me to buy a car even though I need one. So I'm 21, male, and my girlfriend is 23, female, and we currently live together. My current vehicle is 20 years old, burns quite a bit of oil, suspension sounds like it's falling apart. The entire car is rusty, the transmission is starting to slip, and the engine randomly stalls. It's got 225,000 miles. She thinks I should buy a different vehicle that wouldn't require me to get a loan. However, I found a nice compact car that's brand new and is exactly how I'd like it with a manual transmission. I've already been approved for the loan and put a deposit down because it's currently being built. I won't have it for another month, but it's not too late to back out. The reason I went for a new car over a used one is because every used car I've bought has developed an issue within a month, and I need something I can trust. The two reasons I think I could be the jerk if I follow through with the car is that it is a loan, which she said she's not okay with, and it's a manual transmission, which she's not able to drive. The reasons I don't think I'm the jerk is because she eventually wants to buy a house, and this will build my credit and help us in the long run. Not the jerk. Unless you are spending money from a joint account, your girlfriend has no say on how you spend your money. As long as you're keeping up with your financial commitments, rent, bills, etc., there's no issue here. I would definitely question why she's trying to control your finances though. OP, she just doesn't think loans are a good idea. Well then, she's entitled to her opinion, but has no right to push it on you. Unfortunately, loans are the only way to afford most big purchases in the current climate. Let me get this straight. She doesn't want you to buy a new car because she doesn't think loans are a good idea, but she wants to buy a house? Either she has a ton of money saved up, or does she want to buy a shack for a house because she's not getting a house without some type of loan? A house often doesn't decrease in value, a car does. Houses are indeed almost impossible to buy without a mortgage, but cars are. No jerks here technically yet, but at some point you're going to have to tell her you've bought a car and deal with her reaction. Ask yourself this, do you really want to hide what you're doing from her? That should define how your relationship works going forward. They're not married, not even engaged. OP can mention in passing, but he doesn't need her permission or approval. Well, who do you think is the jerk, OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. If Reddit boy told me I couldn't buy a new car, I'd buy two instead. Am I the jerk for not spending time with my daughter? I, 36 male, have 3 kids who are 12 male, 14 male, and 16 female. I spend most of my time with my boys, fishing, going on trips with them and their friends. Sometimes we even go camping. A lot of times they even sit around me and my friends when we're at the campfire. We spend a lot of time together bonding as father and sons, but my daughter does not. I take my boys to clubs like coding, American football, and basketball. I asked my daughter if she would like to go to any clubs, but she declined and I said fine by me. My daughter asks me to do things like practice makeup, fashion, etc. I have no interest. Instead, I like things like football, fishing, and building things. I frequently visit Home Depot with my sons because we are always working on projects like how we are working on building a cabin. My daughter comes around asking me to come shopping with her, which I find unimaginably boring, so I pass on the offer. My boys hate going shopping with their mother and sister, but love the things I do with them. So whenever their mother is not forcing them to come along, we are always having fun. I asked my daughter multiple times to come, but she refused. The last few weeks, she's been asking me to spend time with her, but she never does anything that would interest me. All she does with me is show me new clothes, talk about TV shows, and typical teenage girl stuff. I'm not interested in things like getting my hair done, so I do not spend time with her often. Last week, she came to me, and I refused. I think this was the last straw in her book because she was furious. She started calling me out, saying how I never spent time with her and that I love her brothers more than I care about her, which is not true. I reassured her that I love her and her brothers equally, but she does not listen. She asks me to try doing what she likes for a change, but I explain to her how I'm not interested. My wife has also called me out on this. When I told my friends, they told me it was just a phase and their daughters have done the same thing. This calmed me down, but my daughter will not speak to me. I feel really bad. Am I the jerk? Everything you do with your kids has to be all about you and what you like. And if your kids have different interests, they're useless to you and you won't spend any time with them. You have other kids whose shared interests can reflect your self-perceived glory, and you're all that matters. Yes, bruh, no question, you're the jerk. You're the jerk. Your daughter isn't quite right. It's not that you love your sons more than her, it's that you love yourself more than all of them. It's just more convenient to spend time with your sons because they happen to be into the same things as you. Being a parent is a sacrifice. Sometimes that means getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that you don't find fun, because it isn't actually about the activity, it's about spending time together. You would be the jerk if you were actually the father in this situation, but I have a feeling this was written by the daughter. In which case, I really want to make it clear to you that your father is incredibly selfish and self-interested. If he only wants to spend time with his kids when doing an activity he enjoys, then he's only doing it for himself. This is really important for you to understand, because I imagine it feels like he loves your brothers more than you, because they spend more time together. And if you feel less loved, you may start to question your own self-worth. But it's not that you are less lovable than them. It's that your father is a narcissist who only puts himself and his desires above others, including his kids. And that has nothing to do with how much of a fantastic person you are. And if you are, by chance, the father, well, read what I've said above and realize how you're making your daughter feel. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. Don't do it, bud. None of these folks on Reddit have any clue what it means to be a man. We aren't meant to play with Barbie dolls and My Little Ponies. Mama can be the one to do that. Here's some solid advice that I hope you take to heart. Find a group of men whose values you admire, then consult them on these kinds of issues. Never seek family advice on a site like this that's full of, no offense, very sick in the head people who do nothing but project their insecurities and delusions onto others. It's not their fault they're so messed up. It took billions of dollars and a few decades to degrade our people to the level they're currently at. I joined a Freemasons lodge almost 10 years ago, and one of our most often discussed topics is how important it is that you seek advice from the right people. The folks on Reddit are definitely not the right ones. They don't even know how to navigate their own lives. How would they be able to help guide yours? Take their advice, and next thing you know, you'll be waking up with purple hair, complaining about depression, anxiety, and how you don't feel like working anymore, so you're quitting your job for mental health reasons. Bottom line, in this world, there's haves and have-nots. Never seek advice from a have-not. They will only lead you astray. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk in this story or not? Please let us know. One of the keys to building effective relationships is finding out what the other person is interested in and bonding with them over it. I learned that in a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Wow, Karen, you're smarter than you look. Too bad you're not, Reddit boy. Am I the jerk for letting my son call my best friend dad? I'm 30, male. My relationship with my wife, Sam, who's 29, has been rocky since our son Oliver was born 2 years ago. She got pregnant just a few months after we got married, and things were fine up until Oliver's delivery. I assume it was postpartum depression. Sam never sought out a specific diagnosis, but after he was born, it was like she just couldn't care less about our kid. We hadn't planned to have kids so early into our marriage, and it was scary, but I can't describe to you the all-encompassing love that comes with being a parent. The fear was worth it for me. It still is and always will be. Throughout Oliver's life, but especially that first year, I was essentially acting as a single parent. The only help I had, and I don't mean for that to sound diminishing, because this man is a godsend, was my best friend, Matt, who's 33. The plan was for Oliver to be fed naturally, but my wife had no interest in it after he was born. I was the one changing diapers and mixing up formula for bottles, and being in the house we shared felt so oppressive. Like the joys of bonding with my son were being sucked out of me because of the energy there. So I would take Oliver to Matt's. I don't want to ramble on for too long, but there have been exactly 0 times in life where Matt hasn't shown up for me. I've known him since I was 19 and can safely say that even after all that time. But this is the most wonderful thing he's given me. I could sleep soundly knowing my baby would be taken care of. I had a place of refuge. He is so good with Oliver and is my shoulder to cry on. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay him, but I'm definitely trying every single day. Things with my wife have kind of started to look up, but recent events have sent us in a huge downward spiral. Oliver was having some speech delays, but he's really been picking things up as his 3rd birthday nears. He's babbled "dada" towards Matt and I for a while now, but "daddy" has since been added to his vocabulary, and that is used to refer to us both. I have never corrected him. I checked in with Matt to make sure he was fine, and he said he was honored to be bestowed with such a title. Sam got to hear this recently when I was on FaceTime with Matt, and she basically went ballistic. As much as I hate to admit it, I did say he was more of a parent than she had ever been, which, while true, is hurtful. I need outside opinions on this. Am I the jerk for allowing him to call him dad? I think you are going to get lambasted for this one. I'm going with not the jerk for me, however. I have been hospitalized previously for depression, and I think it's amazing my now wife stayed. Crap gets rough out there, but everyone gets to be happy. That includes you. Soft toss on ask yourself if you are in love with Matt. Seems like you act as a couple. No judgment, but leave if it's what you want. I don't think anyone would be asking OP to examine their feelings if OP were a woman describing a friendship with another woman. People need to stop this assertion that men cannot be emotionally close and vulnerable with one another. Not only is it perfectly acceptable and healthy for 2 men to have an emotionally close friendship, but it should be more normalized so men feel more comfortable forming close connections with their buddies. Not the jerk, but I feel like there's a huge part of this story missing. The kid is 2 years old and you are still bringing him over there? Without more details, I'll take your wife's side and say it sounds like you are retreating to your friend's house far too much, like it's your family's house. Your wife is probably jealous and suspicious because you're really gushing over this dude and putting her down. Like really? You're putting your wife down way too much for someone that just had a kid with her. ETA, if she had these issues, have you brought them up? Has she addressed them? Do you communicate these feelings or just go to your friend's house? Seems like he's going there to get a break. He's basically a single parent with 0 help. If she was so jealous, she would help with her own son. Post-party depression is a serious mental illness that she should have had counseling and maybe medication for. It's not something you will just go away so you can take care of your baby. OP needed a friend and support too, and that is great, but he should have been making sure his wife got the help she needed as well. OP mentioned numerous times for her to seek help, and she refused. She's an adult who made her choice, so now he needs to focus on his kid who doesn't have a choice in the matter. Just like anyone with a mental illness, no one can force you to get help, you have to do it yourself. OP's wife, after 2 years refusing help, isn't on him, that's on her. Well, who do you think's the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Copywriter will have a hard time finding a job with that resume. Many years ago, I worked at Kinko's, now FedEx office. I often worked graveyard shifts and had to deal with a lot of people early in the morning who hadn't had their coffee yet. For some context, Overnight was the time when long machine runs were printed and tedious finishing work was done. Being the only one working until 6 a.m. when the morning crew started to trickle in, I was often in the middle of something when the customer came in and it would take me a second to get to the counter to help them. One morning around 5 a.m., I'm in the back doing some binding work. I hear the door alarm and it just put a perfect binding in the heater. This takes about 15 to 20 seconds to melt the glue and bind the pages. I yell from the back, "I'll be right out." Jerk customer yells back, "I'm in a hurry." I finish the binding and get up to the counter. Me, "Sorry about the wait. What can I do for you?" "Can I see your resume paper selection?" Our resume papers were literally sitting 6 inches away from her on the counter in a little bound book that had resume paper printed in big bold letters. I slide the book over in front of her and open it up. As she flips through it, she proceeds to complain about the color and texture of every paper before asking me the price. Me, 15 cents per copy, plus 7 cents if you want to print on the second side. "That's expensive. Don't you have any better paper for that price?" Me, "Sorry, that's our full selection of resume papers. The only other options are plain white copy paper, Astro Brights, neon colored, or cardstock. Are you going to need this double-sided or single-sided?" I could see that she had in front of her a 2-page resume, which usually printed single-sided. "Which one is cheaper?" "Double-sided will be cheaper, but for resumes, our customers usually prefer single-sided." "Just give me 50 copies, double-sided on the sandstone." I confirm her selection and head back to the copier to complete her order. I print out a proof, and as a matter of quality assurance, I give it a once-over to confirm we're not getting any fuser marks, random spots, streaks, etc. I noticed that her job title on her most recent job was something like copy waiter. I assumed she meant copywriter and confirmed as much by reading a bit of the description. Me, "Ma'am, I noticed your previous job title is..." She interrupts me. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't snoop on my personal information." Me, "I apologize. I just noticed a..." "Please just print my order." Malicious compliance kicks in. Okay. I printed the entire stack of 50 resumes and was squaring them up when I noticed "Lorem ipsum dollar citamet" and the last paragraph on the page. At this point, I had to tell her, right? As I'm walking over to the counter to show her the missed filler text, she yells, "Will you please not crimp the pages? I need to hand these out." So I make it to the counter, gently placing her copies in a bag and rang her out. She did come back later to complain, but my manager assured her that we don't make it a practice to proofread customers' documents, as that's their responsibility. I worked at a Kinko's in the early 2000s, a few years before they merged with FedEx, and it was an interesting time. I left just after they merged because the new corporate environment was horrible. My store was on what you call a copy row. There were at least 4 different copy shops on the same street because we were just down from a major university. They all had significantly lower prices than we did for everything, and they weren't shy about posting them all over everywhere. So people would come in and argue the pricing all the time. Customer, "So I'd like these photos printed out on glossy cardstock. It's for my thesis paper." Me, "Awesome, so that'll be $1.49 per impression. Do you need us to print out your paper as well? We've got an info print that'll hammer about a dozen copies out for you in an hour. We could even set it up to interleave." "Why are your color prints so expensive? That's literally theft." Me, "Well, see, our printers are absolute top of the range, and the glossy cardstock is a..." "That shop right across the street has color prints for 25 cents. Me, "They sure do, but I promise you that their printers are old, and that price isn't for cardstock, and their cardstock is cheap, so that when you print your color inserts, they will run and smear and streak. It'll look awful. This is for your thesis. Best foot for..." "This is outrageous. I'm going across the street." Me, "Okay, cool. Pay the digital minimum, which is about $15, and just run your finger across them. They'll streak. See you in a few minutes." "You money-grubbing, overpriced corporate jerk." Me, "See you soon." 3 hours later. "I would like you to print my thesis with color interleaves on cardstock, please. The stuff I printed over there ruined all the thesis I'd already printed, and I can't present those." Me, "Absolutely." Am I the jerk for having a craving of something that makes my partner sick? I, 25 female, Recently found out I was pregnant with my partner, Lyle's, who's 26, male, baby. We've been together for 3 years and we live together. Lyle has ADHD, which he refuses to get treatment or medication for. He's pretty normal about 85% of the time, so I haven't really pushed it. One thing that really affects him though is sensory problems. He has a few, but the biggest one is bananas. He cannot stand the smell of a banana or the taste of a banana. He's accidentally eaten something with banana before and ran to the bathroom like a kid to throw it up. If we are somewhere and someone is eating a banana, he will claim that he can smell it in the room and make us move with the threat that he will get sick. If we don't move, he will start gagging, make himself throw up, and I've seen him start shaking too. This has happened in public before and it's extremely embarrassing. Anyway, let me tell you what happened. I was really tired, pregnant, and hormonal yesterday, and while I was watching my show, I had a craving for a banana, which I normally avoid when around Lyle, but pregnancy cravings are just too strong to resist. He was going to get groceries from work, so I called him and asked him to get me some bananas because I was having a craving. He started begging me before he even got them to not eat them in the house, and I just got fed up and told him no, that I was carrying around his kid, and the least he could do about it, since he's not the one having to nurture this darn thing in my stomach, was get me a banana. I'd read online that this was probably the baby's way of telling me it's deficient in potassium, and that's all I could really stand to eat at this point was the darn banana, and I don't want to deprive it of what it needs. He argued back and forth, asking me to go eat it outside at least, and out of frustration, I just started crying, which made me feel embarrassed. He finally gave in to calm me down and brought it home. I'll admit, I was still really mad and upset from our argument on the phone when he came home, and I, in that moment, couldn't face getting up and going to the kitchen. When he came into the living room and sat on the couch, I asked him to peel it, cut it, and bring it to me. I really didn't think that this was such a big deal, but he blew up at me and told me that I knew it made him sick to even smell or touch. I told him that plenty of people have foods they don't like, and he either needs to grow up or seek help for his illness because he's acting like a kid and his problem with bananas is completely abnormal. We argued a bit more and he finally got up, yelled that he was tired of my BS, and left the house. He hasn't been back yet. I get his issues are a sensitive topic for him, and when I was talking to my friend about it, she said she had an autistic sister and what I did was a bit messed up. So Reddit, am I the jerk? I was with you until you made him peel and cut it for you, knowing how he reacts to it. You're a jerk for that. Just peel and eat the darn thing, and I'm guessing you're not far enough along that you can't grab the banana and toss it afterwards yourself. You're the jerk. Hey guys, it's Kyle here. Yes, she literally changed my name from Kyle to Lyle and thought that that was good enough. One of her friends sent me this, and I want to set the record straight because I'm beyond upset. First of all, I want to address this refuse to get treatment or medication BS. I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. It took until college to realize I needed to adapt things to how my brain worked rather than slap a medication over it and try to pretend I'm neurotypical. I adapt well in life. I graduated on the dean's list in college and I'm doing well at my dream job and thriving as an indie person. Do I still forget about the laundry sometimes or have a hard time focusing on certain things, especially when I'm tired? Yes, and it upsets her. Does this mean I have issues? No. This medication BS started almost immediately after we found out Jess was pregnant like a month ago. It wasn't approached like, hey Kyle, I noticed XYZ that seemed to be hard for you. I think you need help with that. I was instead first asked if my ADHD was going to spread to the baby. Literally, spread was used. And second, told that I should probably take this as a chance to get it under control because she didn't want the baby to grow up dealing with any problems. Now let's get to the sensory aversions. I have been through therapy to manage it. I can now, after years, touch paper towels without my gums hurting. But bananas, I just cannot deal with. People who aren't ND and don't deal with sensory aversions don't understand that it is literally physically painful in many cases and genuinely makes me sick. I don't make myself throw up. My body naturally reacts like that. Jess has told me many times how embarrassed she is by it and how it affects her, and her solution is exposure therapy. What she doesn't realize is that's essentially the same thing as torture to me. There are some cases, like the paper towels, where I've realized it's just a little too common, but bananas are not common enough for me to sit there and do this to myself just to make her feel less embarrassed next time she wants me to try a smoothie her sister makes and lie about the ingredients. Finally, other details I think are important. I'm going to bullet these because I'm going to write too much otherwise. Jess was binge watching a show on Netflix and wanted me to bring her a banana while she watched the show on the couch. We are in a one-bedroom apartment, and the smell would probably be there for at least a day. We had gotten in an argument about my ADHD and me not having meds the day before, so this didn't seem like a sudden craving, but more a cruel jab since it was still tense. The pregnancy wasn't planned, and no, random commenter, I didn't do that. She was on birth control and it failed. She wasn't too sick to get up, she was too lazy and angry and told me to go cut it for her because I just want to watch my show in peace. I'll admit, I snapped when she insisted I cut the banana and do just this one thing for our kid to show I care, as if she didn't go out and quit her job pretty much immediately without even telling me, and I'm now dealing with all of the household expenses while she shops. I've also been caring for most of the house because she's already claimed being too pregnant from morning sickness. So yes, I was fed up with her BS. ADHD is not an issue, it just means my brain works a little different. I'm so tired of the BS that's come from nowhere. Get over yourself. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. I can't be the only one who feels legit stressed out after hearing that story. Pass the pepper, darn it. A tale of bad manners and poor anger management. I like fresh ground pepper. My wife likes fresh ground pepper. My friends like fresh ground pepper. I particularly like it on my weekly Sunday breakfast, which, as it happens, takes place in the same local neighborhood diner as it has for 10 years. Alas, this diner deploys simple pepper shakers, inadequate for our tastes, so we bring along our own purse-sized mill. This diner, I should further point out, is generally patronized by regulars each Sunday morning, and we are on smile and wave basis with most of them. As usual, this past Sunday we were enjoying our breakfast, talking, laughing over stupid jokes, the usual. At the table to our immediate right was a couple of about mid-50s, same as us, but unfamiliar to us, not regulars, and the man had a loud voice. So loud, in fact, that he made our conversation a little difficult. During a lull in our conversation, I heard him say, "Pass the pepper." My friends then mentioned that they were going for a bike ride later and wondered if we'd like to join them. I thought it over, and just as I was about to answer, I heard a scraping of a chair from the next table. Suddenly, the man with a loud voice was looming over our table. "I said, pass the pepper, darn it!" He barked and reached across the table to grab my pepper mill. A cacophony of protest, surprise, queries, and exclamations followed. I managed to block his hand and looked up at him. "Hey, what are you doing?" I demanded. My friend, a very mild-mannered and gentle man, jumped to his feet and squared up. "Pass the pepper," the man snarled again. "What is so hard to understand?" I quickly slid the pepper mill off the table and into my pocket. Then I, too, stood up. "The pepper?" I asked. "You mean my pepper? That isn't the communal pepper." "What is wrong with you?" he shouted. "I want the pepper." At this point, his wife, quicker on the uptake, realized his mistake and tried to get his attention. Roy, sit down. It's not... Roy, listen." She tried, but Roy, doubling down and in high dudgeon, was not to be denied. "Get that pepper out of your pocket and hand it over now." Eyes were uncomfortably on us. Other tables were watching this play out in surprise and shock. At this point, a server approached with her arms full of someone else's breakfast. "Hey guys, not sure what's going on, but I have hot food here, coming through." As she passed, Roy shouted again, and this time threw his hands in the air in a "what the heck" gesture. It all happened in a blur, and before the server could deke, she was covered in sunny-side-up eggs, home fries, and sausage. "Roy!" the woman screamed. "Gah!" Roy shouted. "See what you did!" His wife had scrambled to her feet to assist the server, who dropped the second plate as well. My wife also got up to help, and the owner, Donna, a sweet-faced 65-year-old, suddenly emerged from the kitchen. "What is going on?" she said, alarmed. Everyone started talking at once, and Roy, Alpha Roy, shouted over everyone. "This jerk," indicating me, "wouldn't pass the pepper," he roared. Donna gaped at him for a moment. She looked at the mess on the floor, the now red-faced and furious Roy, the other customers, and then me. What? There's pepper on your table. Roy, his wife screamed again, apologize now and sit down. It's my pepper mill, I said again, not the restaurant's. Idiots, Roy shouted. Why didn't you say something, jerk? I laughed out loud and looked with amazed surprise at my friend. He stared straight at Roy and said in a quiet but firm voice, listen to your wife and sit down. Donna looked around at the mess and confusion. At this point, approximately 45 seconds had elapsed since Roy first lurched to his feet to steal my pepper. I think I'm going to have to ask you to leave, she said to Roy. I can't have this in my restaurant. Roy's wife, nearly in tears, began apologizing rapidly and repeatedly. Roy started protesting and demanding that he get to eat his breakfast. Donna, sweet red-faced but tough, told him he could leave voluntarily or she could have the police assist him. Roy, now, his wife said. She left a wad of money on the table and grabbed his arm, pulling him to the door. I am so sorry, she said to Donna and the server. I guess he loves his pepper too. You can't cash that check without an account. We had a hailstorm in my area and my car was pummeled with the hail. Not a huge deal, as most dentless hail repairs will do it for way cheaper than your insurance pays. Call my insurance and they scheduled me for 3 days later on a Sunday of all things. Lady shows up and takes photos and prints me off a settlement check on the spot. With a slight problem being that the check is written out to me and the national financing company I bought my car from years ago. Somehow, when I paid off my car, they never released my title and I never noticed. I now cannot deposit my check without NFC releasing their claim on my car, which has been paid off for at least 10 years by this point. After some calling around and jumping through hoops, I'm told if I go to National Bank that issued my insurance check with some paperwork from NFC releasing all claims on my car, I could cash my insurance check. Fine, but stupid National Bank isn't in my town and it's a 45-minute drive to said National Bank. I verified everything by speaking with a manager at the nearest bank and verified all I needed was the letters, my ID, and the check, and he would cash my check. I show up and head to a teller like the local manager told me to do and presented all of the required documentation. The teller asked me what my account number was. I told her I didn't have one. She informed me that checks over a certain amount could not be cashed if a person did not have an account with them. I informed her that the manager told me that I could cash this check if I showed the required documentation. She informed me that he didn't know what he was talking about and called him over. They had a nice private conversation and collectively informed me that the teller was correct and I had to have an account. Funny enough, as I walked up to the bank, a sign was informing people that if new users signed up for an account and deposited an amount smaller than my insurance check, you would get a $250 sign-up bonus. I asked what was required to set up an account, and lo and behold, it took a whole 10 minutes to set up my new account and about a week for the check to clear and to get my $250 bonus. Transferred everything but the required amount to keep the account open because you had to close out in person. I think it was $10 or under. My Karen landlord is suing me for her kids' medical bills, so I'm living in a basement suite that has a laundry room next to it. The laundry room is shared by myself and the family I'm renting from as part of the rental agreement. One day a week, the family will unlock the door in the laundry room that leads to my suite, and thus I have access to the room for the day. I put my clothes in the machine and shut the door to the suite so that I don't hear all the ruckus. There are stairs in the laundry room that lead up to the rest of the house, so I assume that's how they got access to the laundry room. I had my clothes drying in the laundry room. All of a sudden, I hear yelling from the wife, and next thing I know, the ambulance has arrived. I soon learned that 1. Apparently their kid, who's currently 4, had actually opened the dryer and got in. 2. Their dryer was faulty. It doesn't shut off when you open the door. Yeah. This was last week, and he turned out to be relatively fine. But now the landlord and landlady want me to reimburse the ambulance bill and medical bill. They have no insurance, totaling $8,477. Because it was my laundry that he climbed into. Really? I didn't think I was responsible because 1. I'm not in charge of watching their kid. I'm paying an insane amount of rent to begin with. I didn't agree to babysit anyone in addition. And 2, it's their laundry machine that is apparently faulty. But they insist and I'm not sure. I went to a forum that was oriented towards landlords to see if I was really reasonable. I was asked if the family ever raised rent. I've been living there for 1 year and 4 months, so no, I admit they did not raise rent when the lease was renewed after the first year. But still, they didn't do it for charity. I pay my rent on time every time and don't cause a problem. I assume them not collecting a little extra is still better than the risk of trying to find a tenant that isn't trouble, etc. At least that was their thinking. Anyways, I'm not planning to stay after the lease ends. I was told then by the landlords that I should be grateful that they did not raise rent and should pay up to be morally fair. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thanks for all the advice. I will discuss this with a lawyer, but I don't think they will try to pursue this outside of guilt-tripping me, as I think they know that they really don't have a case. To clear up a few things. 1. Yes, I do laundry once a week. I'm a single person, and a few loads for 1 day of the week is enough for me. To be fair to the land people, they have expressed letting them know if I need an extra day or whatever to do laundry. They seem chill about that part. I don't know. I've never taken them up on that offer. 2. I don't know how he got in. The door doesn't take much effort to open. I don't know, nor is it my responsibility to know. 3. Yes, that really was the majority of the response on the landlord forum. I didn't go into details because I didn't need to. I only stated what the verdict came out to be, that I should pony up to be fair. Yes, there were comments and discussion on the stupidity of the situation. There was some sympathy towards me, but the majority verdict in the echo chamber was, as to whether I should pay, be grateful they didn't raise rent and pay up or risk being a leech or to just be nice because dealing with tenants isn't easy. Mind you, I've never caused trouble for them to begin with, aside from having the audacity of drying my clothes in the 21st century in a machine someone can climb into, I guess. 4. I didn't question the medical bill as I'm a graduate student on a long-term exchange program from Canada. I've never paid a medical bill in my life and just accepted the fact that it would be expensive. Not the jerk. You need legal advice now because you aren't responsible, but they're trying to fleece you, and they should contact their homeowner's insurance. It can cover this stuff sometimes. Not the jerk. Both your points are completely valid. They are responsible for watching their 4-year-old and fixing any faulty appliances. It's not like they asked you not to use it until it was fixed. You could also probably get a free 30-minute consult with a lawyer just to make sure they don't have a case against you. But I'd start looking for somewhere else to live in case they get petty about it all. Well, what do you think? Should OP pay the medical bills or not? Please let us know. Absolutely not. It wasn't their fault. Am I the jerk for asking hubby to stay with his parents while he's unemployed? My husband, 32, and I, 30, have been married for just over a year now, and things couldn't be rockier. I have a good job and make a decent amount of money, whereas my husband made not as much as me. Due to this, and the fact he was still living with his parents when we got married, we decided he would move in with me and I would continue to pay the rent and bills as long as he put money towards other things we may need as a couple. My name is the only one on the lease. However, once we got married, he started to cut down on his work hours without saying anything first. He gave the explanation that I made plenty of money for the both of us, so he could just work part-time and do the work around the house while I was the main breadwinner. I was fine with this, a little upset that he had just assumed this would be okay, but I didn't say anything as this felt fair. He did do some work around the house initially, but spent the majority of his time going out to the bar, playing video games, etc., to the point where I was the one both working and doing the cooking, cleaning, and other household chores. My husband told me he was laid off 2 months ago for reasons out of his control. I assumed in this time that he would begin job hunting, and I began to pay for everything. While I do earn a decent amount of money, it's not to the point where I can pay for rent, bills, groceries, insurance, contribute to emergency savings, and finance the lifestyle my husband had started indulging in. I began paying for his nights out, subbing him money for trips to look for work, etc., all while I was under the assumption he would be searching for a new job, at least to finance his hobbies. About a week ago, I asked him how the job hunt was going, and he told me that he didn't feel like it was worth it. He said to me that he was comfortable with what he had now, and I wasn't happy to say the least. I confronted him about how I was doing everything to finance and take care of our household while he sat around and played video games. I was being a jerk here, I'll admit. And during this argument, he let slip that he had actually quit and never looked for another job. I was furious that he had lied to me and told him I didn't want him in my home right now. Fast forward to now. My in-laws are understanding to an extent, but are calling me a jerk for not wanting him to come back home until he gets a job. I've seen my husband in this time, but never in our home, always out somewhere. I no longer pay for everything, and his attitude towards me is making me question our entire relationship. He's calling me a jerk for doing this to him, and I'm beginning to think he's right. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Good grief, the amount of red flags here is ridiculous. 1. He cut down his hours without discussing it. 2. He quit his job and lied about it. 3. He spends his time partying with his buddies and having you pay the bill. 4. He lied about job searching. 5. He won't help keep up the household. Sounds like only seeing him in passing is best. Don't let him back into your house unless you just want a mooch, lazy roommate that won't pay rent. His living with mommy and daddy up until he moved in with OP. In my opinion, him not having the experiences of living alone or with roommates more or less made him think of OP as his next mommy. ETA. I know there are a million reasons why someone would still be living at home, but in this case, with all the other red flags waving, it says a lot about Hubs. The only reason his parents are upset with OP is because they finally got him out of their house and now he's back. OP should take this as a sign and tell him to stay there. Not the jerk. Your husband is totally taking advantage of you. He didn't give you any choice in any of this. He just made decisions and forced you to go along with them. Divorce him. He's literally dead weight and you're better off without him. Everyone sucks here. I know I'll get downvoted for this, but I've seen stories like this where the roles are reversed and you all respond completely differently. When the wife is the one who is lazy and entitled, you all just make excuses for her and tell the husband he needs to do better. Is she depressed? Have you been helping enough around the house? Have you been telling her that she's beautiful? Imagine a man saying he wants his wife to go live with her parents because he's tired of paying the bills himself. You all would be flipping out on him so hard. Edit. The guy is obviously a loser, which is why I said everyone sucks here. My point was how you idiots on Reddit will often side with the OP simply due to her being a woman. One example, several of you here are insulting this man for living with his parents until he got married and moved in with his wife. If the woman had lived with her parents until she got married, you would all be defending her, saying how expensive it is to move out in this economy. I'm just calling you people out on your BS. Mental health issues are much more common in young males than females these days, and it's mostly because of how we're looked down upon by people like you. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for feeling this way about her husband or not? Please let us know. Wow, Reddit boy, this guy sounds almost as useless as you are. Give up on my career or move out? Okay. This happened recently, and right now things have calmed down, so it feels right to post this here. So about 2 weeks ago, my best friend, who's 22, had called me, I'm 23, asking if he could be my roommate if I find a place. I was looking for a place to stay while going to college. I told him, sure, but why? But he said he'll tell me later. We both meet up a few days later and drive about an hour away from our hometown to move into the place. We spent a few hours setting everything up and unpacking, yet he never said anything about why he wanted to move in with me so suddenly. After we were done, he sat down and explained the situation at home. He and his parents had been at each other's throats recently because he had landed a remote job after our summer internship, and they thought he was wasting his life playing on a computer. His parents have always done factory and physical labor jobs and look down on people who work from their computers because they don't know what real work is. Side note, his dad actually does his auto shop's taxes and other functions from his office and rarely does any mechanic work himself, so it's kinda hypocritical. He continues to tell me that the day before he called and asked me, they had a huge blow-up that resulted in his parents giving him the ultimatum of, get a real job or get out. And he says he just went to his room and started packing. I'm guessing even if I had said no, he was moving out regardless. That brings us to him telling the story to me. When he was done, he looked so relieved. I believe the reason he kept so quiet during the move was because he was holding it in and trying not to go crazy. After that, we both spent the rest of the day hanging out to try and keep his mind off of things. Fast forward 3 days later. His parents call him, asking why his stuff is not in his room. They were gone for a few days to give him time to come to his senses, thinking he'd give up his roughly 4 years of college and internships to get a job as a mechanic starting from scratch. There's nothing wrong with mechanics or people who work labor jobs, but he's been working his butt off these last few years only for them to basically tell him to drop all of that and get a job they want him to get. I leave the apartment to give him and them some privacy and take a quick walk. When I get back 20 minutes later, he's got a wide smile on his face and he tells me the long and short of it. He apparently left a few details out before and this time told me the whole story. Roughly around the time we started working at that paid internship, his parents had been charging him rent, $350 every month, as motivation for him to get a real job, and the blowout they had was about him being able to pay it. Despite not having a real job they had picked out, they said he needed to grow up, get real work experience, and even went as far as accusing him of stealing to get the money. So he had had enough and packed up while they were gone. The phone call they had was him basically telling them he can't go back home because he's not going to change his major, current job, or career path, so he was staying at the apartment with me. I asked him if he's going to be okay. He assured me that he already explained everything to his other relatives and that they're going to try and talk to his family to see if they can convince them to understand why he wants this job and how computer work is still work. This is going to be our last 2 semesters and the tuition is already paid off, so we're good at the moment, as the only thing we have to worry about is the rent, which we can both cover pretty well. Honestly, I was gonna ask him to split this apartment with me regardless because I found a good apartment complex that had a shuttle to our college and had 2 rooms open, but I'm still glad I could help him. He says he'll eventually start talking to his parents again, but I don't think that'll happen until after they come to their senses or else they might lose their only son. Reminds me of a friend of mine. Her father-in-law worked his entire life working in a steel mill. He kept asking his son, my friend's husband, when he was going to stop going to school and get a real job. At this point, his son was a full professor at a large university. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my boyfriend move in with me because it would most likely mean I would have to pay 20 times more in rent? I live in a flat in a building owned by my ex's parents. Because they like me, and my ex asked them to, they only charge me around 5% of the price it would actually cost me to rent it from them. I've been dating my boyfriend for almost 2 years, and he asked to move in with me after he found out my ex moved back here to London and was living in the same building as me. While I would love to live with him, I also know it would mean we would need to pay the full rent amount, which is just not affordable for me, even with him paying half. I don't want to move to another location because this flat is amazing and I doubt I'll ever be able to live here again, so I want to enjoy it until I can't anymore. When I told him no, my boyfriend got super angry at me because he thinks I'm lying about the rent going up if he moves in. And also he told me I couldn't keep leeching from my ex's family my whole life when I wouldn't change my mind. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This man is showing you so many red flags. He wants to move in with you because he's jealous and doesn't trust you. And when you turn him down, he becomes angry and calls you a liar. He's entitled and controlling. Please rethink your relationship with this guy. Really, I think his concerns are justified, especially with the ex living in the same building. If the ex is still single and not married, I'd be worried the landlords are trying to get them back together. Not the jerk. Definitely getting jealous, controlling vibes from your boyfriend though. I wouldn't have him move in, even if the rent stayed the same. Not the jerk. Don't let this guy force you out of a place that you love just because he's jealous of your ex. It does sound like a once-in-a-lifetime type of deal, and you're happy there. I think if you were getting married, it would be reasonable to move or pay the full rent, but since the relationship doesn't seem that far along, it would likely be a mistake. What if you moved or were obligated to pay full rent and then the two of you broke up? Everyone sucks here. You for stringing along your ex and his family for financial gain, and his parents, your landlords, for enabling their son's frankly creepy behavior. Your boyfriend probably has legit concerns about what all this means, especially since your ex just happens to also live in that building. I mean, seriously? I live in the same building as my ex and he's giving me a huge break on my rent. Wouldn't raise any red flags if you were in his shoes? OP, I'm not stringing my ex along. We're friends. I don't know how being friends with someone is a red flag. Friends don't tell their parents to miss out on 95% of the money on the condition that you stay single and nobody else lives there with you. OP, He never said I had to stay single, and he knows I have a boyfriend. They met each other at his housewarming party, so that has nothing to do with how much rent I pay. Then why would your rent suddenly spike up to the normal price? OP, because they're doing me a huge favor by letting me pay the reduced rent. My boyfriend is a stranger to them, so they're obviously not going to want to do the same favor for him, so it makes logical sense that the rent would go back to the normal price. It sounds like your boyfriend just isn't important enough to you for you to even see if him moving in would be allowed. It's cool for you to not want him to live with you, but it sounds like you're using this as an excuse because you haven't even spoken with your ex's parents about whether they would be okay with your boyfriend of 2 years moving in with you. They know you have a boyfriend, right? They're doing you a favor by letting you live there at that rate, but it would still be doing you a favor to allow your boyfriend to join you, even though it benefits him as well. Unless you at least see what their response would be, you're the jerk. Refusing to even bring this subject up is what makes you the jerk. Because if it's really you don't want him living with you, then you need to be honest with him about that. Not the jerk. Major red flags on your boyfriend's part. He sounds so controlling, manipulative, and exhausting, and honestly, just a major drama prince crybaby. I stay friends with all of my exes. That doesn't mean I'm still hooking up with all of them. If a new guy has a problem with me hanging out with my exes, I know it won't work out long term, so that usually results in my cheating on him, since he's not worth my time. Don't you ever try to tell me what to do. Real men don't try to control you and tell you what to do. Real men are okay with you doing whatever you want, even if that is hooking up with your exes, because secure dudes understand that they don't own you and this isn't the 50s anymore. The way I see it, we had to do everything for generations, so now it's our time to kick some tail, and maybe cheat on the boyfriend every now and then, especially if he's a drama prince. Don't judge me, you don't know what I've been through. Well, gee, don't you sound pleasant. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Fired after my boss went through my purse. I've been working front of house at this restaurant for almost a year. Lately, I had been wanting to quit due to a toxic atmosphere. Today I was working, and I was going to be working tonight by myself because we are understaffed and I am one of 2 employees who can close by myself. I had grabbed a job application to another job, had it filled out, and was going to hand it in this morning, but I was running late, so I just shoved it in my purse to hand in tomorrow. Anyways, I was just making boxes with my coworkers, and my boss was in the office doing something. He comes out and asks to speak to me. I go into the office and he says, "What's the job application in your purse?" I looked over to my purse and the little section where it has you fill out your references was poking out of my bag. I said, "It's for name of the other restaurant." He asked me why, and I said, "Because I feel like you guys treat me like crap." And he said, "Okay, if you feel like that, go ahead and clock out and go home." And I was fired. Feeling very violated and angry, this is my personal property. Plus, what if I had just wanted to work 2 jobs? Is that even legal? Is there anything I can do? He has cameras, but they're only accessible on his phone and app. I had never been written up here before. I was spoken to a few times because they were trying to treat me like a manager without the proper compensation or title, and once was spoken to about my socks being the wrong color, but that's it. This is just so unfair. Any advice is appreciated. Definitely file for unemployment. At the very least, you might get a few weeks of income while you look for another job, and your boss's unemployment insurance might go up. And if your boss isn't the owner, he might have to answer to them about it. Board-certified labor lawyer here. Unfortunately, if you're in the US, but not in Montana, the firing is perfectly legal. I will say, as I said in another comment, that your boss is a real jerk though. If he physically went into your purse, that is an invasion of privacy. He has no right to go through your personal things, and honestly, there's no other way he could have seen the job application, right? Makes me wonder what he was looking for to begin with. Anyway, most law firms will offer a free consultation to see if you have a case. I would maybe look for something like wrongful termination because he fired you because he couldn't handle that you would want to go somewhere else, not because you couldn't perform your job or had any history of not performing your job. The invasion of privacy might just argue your case. Good luck. Do people not understand that servers have to tip out staff? I have to pay to serve you, so if you don't tip, I actually lose money. At the restaurant I work at, gratuity is not included. And like most restaurants, servers at my restaurant have to tip out the greeters, bussers, and service bartender. The average check where I work is around $200, and I have to tip out 4% of food sales. So if your bill is $200, then I have to pay $8 to serve you. If you do not tip me, I lose money serving you. I have to tip out 4% regardless of what you tip me. Tonight I got stiffed on 2 checks. One was $300. It happens. We get a lot of international guests who don't always understand tipping culture, but even some locals will only tip like $15 on a check that big. It occurred to me tonight that maybe people don't know that servers have to tip out other staff, regardless of whether you leave a tip or not. Like, come on, if you can afford to spend $300 on dinner, you can at least give me enough to cover tip out. I know, tipping culture sucks, but this is the system we have for dining out in the US. This is how I eat and pay my bills. Please tip me. It doesn't have to be 18%. I'd just really appreciate it if I didn't have to go in the red to serve you, especially after you treated me like dirt for the last hour and a half. And please, if you are not going to tip me, then don't continue to take up my table for the next 2 hours after you've paid. I've already lost money serving you and am now unable to make more because you've stolen my table. My restaurant has very strict 3-table sections, and if I can't flip those tables, then I'm not going to make any money. I'm not exactly doing this for fun, you know. I've been in the service industry for 2 years now. Working in a restaurant takes a huge physical, mental, and emotional toll. Please don't make me lose money serving you. Please. I gave you the best service I could, and I would rather not lose money on the transaction. Can you imagine being bossed around for an hour and a half by people who act like it's life or death that they get their spicy mayo, only to find out that you have to pay money for that whole degrading experience? Do people not understand that servers have to tip out staff? Probably not. Except for the people who have worked in sit-down restaurants, I'd be surprised if more than 5% of the public is familiar with tip-outs. I have never worked in the restaurant industry, and I had no idea until reading this. Absolutely, people do not understand this. As someone who lurks here but never worked in the industry, tipping out was a concept I learned about in this sub. I'm not from the US, and I only recently learned that servers there don't make the minimum wage from this sub. Didn't have the slightest idea that they even have to tip out. Look, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but let me explain why I don't tip. If I like your food and restaurant, I have every right to come eat there. I am not, however, obligated to pay your employees out of my own pocket, and I will not be bullied into doing so. Do I have to pay the Walmart cashier for ringing up my groceries, or the bagger who bags them? No, of course not. If I were expected to tip them because it's the right thing to do, I still wouldn't. I know your counter to that is, well, they make at least minimum wage. Servers don't. Well, I beg to differ. I've known plenty of waitresses over the years, and I assure you, they were bringing in at least $20 an hour, even at places like IHOP. Why are they able to make such good money? Because there will always be people who give in to the pressure to pay restaurant employees out of their own pockets. There has to be a point where we say enough is enough. I've seen posts on here where servers are mad that they only got a $50 tip. But then when you tell me, don't go out to eat if you can't afford to tip. Oh, trust me, I can afford to tip. I'm a millionaire and I pay my employees well, and I don't expect anyone else to. But my principles are why I will not pay your wages when you're not my employee. I will sometimes leave fake tips that have scripture on the other side, because let's face it, we all need Jesus at the end of the day, no matter who you are. Well, what about you? How much do you usually tip when you go out to eat? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for icing out my team member? I work in a corporate service firm. I don't wish to get more specific than that, but it's one where we do work with clients and it's task-based work with deadlines. I have a junior team member who I'll call Evans. She is a decent worker, still learning how to work in a professional environment and in this industry. She is big on work-life balance and never touches work outside of the work hours. Normally, this is more than fine. We don't care when you work as long as you are reachable and able to finish your tasks when we need them. Here's the issue though. We had a big client presentation. The day before this, I gave Evans a task to do with about 2.5 hours left in the day. The task, while only taking maybe 1 hour, was vital to part of the presentation, which the client specifically requested. Evans does not finish the task and leaves at 5 sharp. Most of us were staying back a bit later doing our own tasks for the presentation, but we took a look at it and saw Evans' work was not done. Here's about as much as I can disclose. Evans has been the go-to person for this set of data and topic, and other than a few others, she's the only one with the expertise to deal with it. Because of this, and the fact that I had bigger tasks to deal with, Evans had done a series of tasks regarding this over the past weeks, and she has the data needed to do this. Sorry if it's a bit hard to follow. Basically, she was the only one with the tools and expertise to do this specific task. While me and other members of the team had expertise, we didn't have the tools and data we needed. We realized this and are all scared because the presentation was in the morning of the next day, like first thing in the morning. We knew Evans would refuse to do the task after hours, even with overtime, so we just asked her to send us the tools, a 2-minute thing. I call her work mobile, no answer. One of us calls her personal number, after some texts. Evans picks up, starts chatting, but when we mentioned that we needed the data, she cut the call. We end up staying till 1 to recreate weeks worth of Evans' work to finally get the presentation right, also delaying our own tasks, so me, along with 2 others, stayed the full night to work on this plus other tasks. Just to put things into context about how easy this task was, once we recreated the week's worth of work, it took me less than 1 hour to finish the task. Evans had 2.5 hours, and then she just refused to even send us the documents. After this, I spoke to her and explained why what she did hurt the overall team, and she didn't care. I admit, I should have planned better, but she just showed no remorse. Now, nobody really wants to give Evans any tasks anymore because we think if something becomes critical, we need someone reliable to be able to hold the keys to fix the issue. She's complaining about not getting more responsibility now. Am I the jerk? No, you're not the jerk. I can't believe she's complaining about not getting more responsibility when she blatantly, and quite stubbornly I might add, proved she is irresponsible and cannot be depended on. What on earth? Not the jerk. Evans can have her hard stop at 5, but she also needs to share her progress with the team so that they can have everything they need to pick up where she left off. If this post had gone, I assigned the task 2.5 hours before 5 p.m. At 5 p.m., Evans sent out the work she had completed thus far and all the data needed to do the rest and explained that she had a hard stop at 5 and needed to leave for the day. Then I would say Evans is not at fault and the assignment should have been handed out earlier. I believe a discussion is needed with Evans explaining that while the team respects her desire to only work the assigned hours, if she fails to meet a deadline, she needs to make sure her teammates are provided the data to complete any projects she fails to finish in time. For this event, the project was handed out too late, but in the future, she should also be aware that time management within her desired hours is her responsibility, and her coworkers are not there simply to pick up her slack. Controversial take here. You're the jerk, sort of. So Evans is the only one to have the tools and expertise to carry out a task. You said it was a 1-hour task, but it clearly took her over 2.5 hours. I am inclined to believe that either your estimation of the task is not adequate or there were unforeseen issues that caused the task to take longer. Neither of these issues is the fault of Evans. I guess I'm not sure why you don't all have access to the tools. That's a management problem as well, and if I were Evans, I would not step in to solve management issues without management compensation. I think you, as a company, need to make sure that everyone who is responsible for a task has access to the tools to carry out that task. What if Evans was injured last night at 5 p.m.? As far as you are concerned, that may very well have been the case. Or maybe she had a family emergency. These are reasons the employer must make sure that the other team members can access the tools as well. The ease of the task is largely inconsequential to me, to be honest. Once the hours are done, that's it. Don't care if it's easy or hard. The fact that you all stayed till 1 a.m. to me is highly indicative of mismanagement, to be honest. Start earlier or set the expectations of your client more realistically. Or, the real solution in my opinion, don't have just one person with the expertise and tools on which the entire schedule rests. Fire Evans immediately if you have that authority. Not the jerk, not a team player hung up on you and didn't finish her task. Give her no important assignments and let her quit if that doesn't work for her. Evans sucks. Not the jerk, Evans sounds lazy and needs to be fired for not being a team player. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Evans? Please let us know. Karen's sister-in-law demands to live with us. I kick her out. I have 5 kids, quadruplets aged 5 and a 10-month-old, as well as in the early stages of pregnancy. There are only 3 bedrooms in our house. The quads are split between 2 rooms, and we have a room which we share with the baby. Obviously, there's not much room for them in my opinion. My sister-in-law and her husband want to stay with us for a month or until their baby arrives, as they want a specific hospital to give birth in which we are way closer to, and they are a month away from their due date. My husband thinks we have enough room as the quads are at school all day and thinks they can help out. I know them well enough to know that they won't. Sister-in-law is one of those people who does that from previous experience. He also thinks we can move all the quads into one room as they have bunk beds, but that will only leave a bit of room, and it could be for over a month. I also don't think it's a good thing for her to stay with us because I'm having morning sickness, and her husband, the last time he was here, cleared out our freezer searching for food and never put it back, and one of the kids tripped over it. Sister-in-law's family has packaged the stuff that she's bringing, a lot of stuff that I doubt will fit in the room, and sent a picture of it to the family group chat saying, "This is my stuff I'm bringing. Thanks for letting me stay. Husband and my name." We haven't agreed on letting her stay, so I privately messaged her as to not embarrass her in the group chat saying, "Hey, is it possible for you to use the money I lent you a while ago to book yourself in a hotel room?" She didn't pay me back yet. She replied with a thumbs up, so I thought that meant she was doing that. But then a few hours later, she arrived at our door and dumped her stuff in before I could talk to her, and she went back down to grab more stuff. But I couldn't follow her as I was the only adult in the house at the moment, and I didn't want to leave the kids in there by themselves. When she and her husband got back, they asked which room they should put their stuff in and got the quads to help. I tried to stop them and explain to them that they cannot stay here, but they said that they had to stay. And when I tried to get them out of our home, they called me names in front of the kids, who I'm trying not to get them to repeat it. So now I'm stuck with the quads in my bedroom and in the quads room, and the sister-in-law and her husband in the other quads room until my husband gets home to try and talk to them. I want to know, am I the jerk? Edit. I have moved their stuff outside and told them to get out of my home. They tried to make it wait until the morning, but now they are packing the car, and I'm gonna put the kids back in their beds. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.